The sandstorm rolled across the barren wastes of Arkin like a living entity. Captain Cale Masson observed it through the polarized viewport of his scout vessel, calculating its trajectory while silently admiring its deadly beauty. 7 years had passed since the interplanetary war had laid waste to this once thriving mining colony, transforming lush, terraformed valleys into scorched badlands. Now, Arkin served as nothing more than a strategic outpost and hunting ground. "Bah, Captain Masson," the crisp voice of his communications officer crackled through his helmet. "Command confirms the blue-skinned entity has been detected in Quadrant 7. They're authorizing immediate pursuit and capture. Priority Alpha." Masson's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his pulse rifle. "Understood. Transmit coordinates." The information flickered across his helmet display movement patterns, thermal signatures, and a grainy visual captured by high-altitude surveillance. The target moved with unusual speed and precision across the unforgiving terrain, almost as if it knew the landscape intimately. Intelligence had been tracking this entity for months, labeling it a significant threat to coalition operations. "Any additional information on capabilities?" Masson asked, prepping his pursuit craft. "Negative. Asset is classified beyond your clearance. Mission parameters remain unchanged. Locate, isolate, and await extraction team. Under no circumstances are you to engage without backup." Curious. Masson had never been denied combat authorization before. His record was impeccable, 17 successful incursions, without a single scar to show for it. Soldiers in his unit joked that death itself was afraid of Cale Masson, the man who walked through firefights untouched. "Copy that command, commencing pursuit." The craft sliced through the amber sky of Arkin, hugging the terrain closely to avoid detection. Masson had spent years perfecting his tracking technique, a blend of military precision and an almost preternatural instinct for anticipating his target's movements. Today was no different. Within 20 minutes, he had visual confirmation. The entity moved like a phantom through a narrow canyon cloaked in dust-resistant fabric that rippled blue when caught by stray sunlight. From his vantage point, Masson could discern little about its physical characteristics, but the movements suggested humanoid form and exceptional agility. "Target acquired," he reported. "Moving to intercept." Masson deployed his tactical drone, a silent, nearly invisible reconnaissance unit, designed to track and, if necessary, incapacitate targets with a paralytic agent. He guided it through a series of commands, maneuvering it into position above the moving figure. "Deploy countermeasures," he ordered the AI assistant. The drone released a fine electromagnetic pulse, designed to disable any cloaking technology. To Masson's surprise, the entity immediately reacted, stopping in its tracks and looking directly upward, as if it had sensed the pulse before it was even deployed. What happened next defied explanation. The blue-skinned figure produced what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon and fired a single shot with impossible precision. The drone, a stealth unit invisible to most advanced detection systems, exploded in a shower of components. But Masson's shock wasn't from losing the equipment. As the drone's remains scattered across the rocky ground, something fell with it. Something that shouldn't have been there. A body. Masson abandoned protocol, sliding down the canyon wall with his weapon drawn. The dust hadn't settled when he reached the impact site, but there was no mistaking what he saw. A humanoid figure with blue-tinged skin, severely wounded, lying motionless beneath the remnants of his drone. "Command," he transmitted, "drone has been compromised. Target is down. Repeat, target is down." "Proceed with caution, Captain. This entity has evaded our best trackers for months." Masson approached carefully, weapon trained on the prone figure. Up close, he could see the entity was female, with features remarkably similar to human, save for the iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer, even in shadow. Her eyes were closed, and a dark liquid blood seeped from a wound in her abdomen. Her weapon lay just beyond her outstretched hand, a device unlike anything in the Coalition arsenal. When Masson nudged it with his boot, it disintegrated into dust. Self-destructing technology, advanced. She's wounded, Masson reported, requesting medical evac. There was a pause from command unusually long. Captain, your orders are to secure the target and wait for the extraction team. No medical intervention is authorized. Masson frowned. Command target is losing blood rapidly. Asset may not survive until extraction arrives. Another pause. Captain Masson, the entity is to be contained, not saved. Is that understood? Something in the phrasing troubled him deeply. Masson had hunted deserters, rebels, even war criminals, but he'd never been explicitly ordered to let a captured target die. Copy, command. He knelt beside the blue-skinned woman. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Despite his orders, professional instinct took over. He applied a pressure seal to her wound. Not treatment, just containment, he told himself. Her eyes snapped open. They were startlingly violet with an inner luminescence that reminded Masson of the phosphorescent tides on his home planet. She didn't struggle or speak, merely regarded him with an expression he couldn't interpret. Recognition, resignation. The ground beneath them trembled. Masson glanced upward, expecting to see the extraction team's transport. Instead, he witnessed the canyon wall collapsing directly above them. Before he could react, the blue-skinned woman moved with impossible speed. Her hand clamped around his wrist, and suddenly they were both sliding sideways, rolling into a natural alcove, as tons of rock crashed down where they had been seconds before. When the dust settled, Masson found himself pinned beneath her protective stance, unharmed, while she had sustained additional injuries from the falling debris. She slumped against him, unconscious once more. His comm unit crackled with static, then cleared. Captain Masson, report status. Landslide in the canyon. He responded, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. The target protected me. Your emotional assessment is irrelevant, Captain. Status of the asset. Asset. Not prisoner. Not even enemy combatant. The clinical terminology further unsettled him. Still alive, but critical. We're trapped by the rockfall. Extraction will need heavy equipment. Understood. Remain in position. Extraction team ETA 90 minutes. Masson looked at the blue-skinned woman. Her breathing had become more erratic. She wouldn't last 90 minutes without medical attention. Requesting immediate medical drop pack, he said firmly. A long silence followed. Request denied, Captain. The asset is to remain in its current condition until the specialized containment team arrives. For the first time in his distinguished career, Captain Cale Masson considered disobeying a direct order. He had served the coalition faithfully through the darkest days of the interplanetary conflict, had committed acts he tried to forget in the name of victory. But letting a helpless prisoner die, one who had just saved his life, crossed a line he wasn't prepared to step over. From his tactical pack, he retrieved a personal medkit. It wasn't designed for whatever physiology the blue-skinned woman possessed, but basic principles of wound treatment should apply. He deactivated his comm unit's outgoing channel and set to work. The woman's eyes flickered open as he applied the sealing compound to her wound. Again that strange look, not fear, not anger, but something more complex. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound emerged. Don't try to talk, Masson said, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. Help is coming. A lie, perhaps, but a humane one. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, then raised a trembling hand to her throat. A translator implant standard for non-human species encountered during the war. It appeared damaged. Coalition. She managed the translation, halting and artificial. Yes, Masson confirmed. Captain Cale Masson, Reconnaissance Division. At the mention of his name, her eyes widened fractionally. Her hand moved toward a compartment in her body armor, triggering Masson's combat reflexes. He caught her wrist. No weapons, he warned. She shook her head again, more insistent. When he cautiously released her, she extracted not a weapon, but a small data crystal. With surprising strength, she pressed it into his palm and curled his fingers around it. Truth, she whispered, before losing consciousness again. Masson studied the crystal an outdated storage technology incompatible with current coalition systems. That, alone, spoke volumes. This wasn't from any recent intelligence operation. This was older, perhaps predating the war itself. His thoughts were interrupted by the ground-shaking approach of the extraction transport. Heavy machinery began clearing the rockfall, and within minutes, a team in full hazard containment gear poured into the alcove. "Step away from the asset, Captain," the team leader ordered. Masson found himself reluctant to comply. "She needs immediate medical attention." "That's not your concern. Stand down." 4 soldiers surrounded the blue-skinned woman, encasing her in a transparent containment field. They made no effort to stabilize her condition. Masson watched in growing discomfort as they efficiently secured her as if she were a dangerous specimen, rather than a critically wounded sentient being. "Captain Masson," the extraction leader addressed him formally. "You are to report directly to Intelligence Officer Tarek for debriefing. Your encounter with the asset has compromised your field status." "Compromised?" Masson questioned. "I followed protocol and secured the target." "That assessment will be made by command," came the flat reply. As they transported the containment unit to the vessel, Masson caught a final glimpse of the blue-skinned woman. Her eyes had opened once more, finding his across the distance. There was no mistaking the message in them now, a warning. The medical bay of Forward Operating Base Meridian hummed with activity, but none of it directed toward treating the blue-skinned prisoner. Instead, she lay motionless in a specialized containment cell, surrounded by scanning equipment and armed guards. Her wounds had been superficially treated enough to keep her alive, but little more. Masson stood before Intelligence Officer Tarek in the adjacent observation room, his posture military perfect, despite the disquiet growing within him. "She saved my life," he stated flatly, when the debriefing turned to the canyon incident. Tarek, a sharp-featured man with calculating eyes, dismissed this with a wave. "A tactical decision, nothing more. These entities are known to manipulate human psychology." "These entities?" Masson questioned. "You've encountered others like her." "That information is classified," Tarek replied smoothly. "What matters now is extracting whatever intelligence this specimen possesses. Your involvement ends here, Captain. You'll be reassigned effective immediately." Masson's jaw tightened. "Sir, with respect, I was the capture officer. Standard protocol allows me to observe the interrogation." "Standard protocol doesn't apply to this asset," Tarek said, studying Masson with new interest. "But your unusual fixation does raise some questions. Perhaps you should remain for the initial procedure. It might clarify things for you." The way he emphasized procedure sent a chill through Masson's combat-hardened spine. 2 technicians entered the containment cell wheeling equipment that Masson recognized from his counterintelligence training neural extractors, designed to forcibly retrieve information from unwilling subjects. The process was known to be excruciating and frequently fatal. "Sir," Masson protested, "the Geneva Mars Conventions explicitly prohibit—" "The conventions apply to human prisoners of war," Tarek interrupted coldly. "This is an unknown hostile entity. Different protocols apply." As the technicians prepared their equipment, the blue-skinned woman's eyes opened. She did not struggle against her restraints or show any sign of fear. Instead, her gaze found Masson's through the observation window, holding it with quiet intensity. The first technician approached with a neural probe. Before he could apply it, warning klaxons blared throughout the facility. "Perimeter breach in Sector 4, announced the automated security system. All personnel to battle stations." Tarek's comm unit activated. "Sir, we have multiple hostiles penetrating the outer defenses. Unknown technology, similar energy signatures to the captured entity." "Secure the asset," Tarek ordered sharply. "Captain Masson, report to your defensive position immediately." Chaos erupted as the facility's lighting shifted to emergency protocols. In the momentary confusion, Masson saw the blue-skinned woman close her eyes in what appeared to be concentration or communication. "She's signaling them somehow," Tarek realized, barking orders to the technicians. "Induce unconsciousness immediately." Masson felt a sudden, inexplicable certainty that allowing them to proceed would be catastrophic. Without conscious decision, his hand moved to his sidearm. "Stop," he commanded the technicians. "Step away from the prisoner." Tarek's expression hardened. "Captain Masson, you are relieved of duty. Security, escort the captain to detention." Two guards approached, but Masson stood his ground. "Sir, something's not right about this entire operation. She's not what you're claiming she is." The building shook violently as an explosion rocked the perimeter defenses. In that instant of distraction, Masson made his decision. With practiced precision, he disabled the approaching guards with non-lethal strikes, then sealed the observation room door, locking Tarek inside. "Masson," Tarek shouted through the reinforced glass, "this is treason." Perhaps it was. But after years of unquestioning service, Masson found himself trusting his instincts over his orders. He entered the containment cell, quickly disarming the stunned technicians and sending them retreating through a side exit. The blue-skinned woman watched him with those luminous violet eyes as he deactivated her restraints. "Why?" she asked, her translator still functioning poorly. "I don't know yet," Masson admitted, helping her to her feet. "But I intend to find out the truth." She swayed dangerously, still weakened from her injuries. Masson supported her, acutely aware that he was now irrevocably committed to whatever path this decision led him down. "We need to get you out of here," he said. She shook her head. "No. Information first." She pointed toward a secure terminal in the corner of the lab. "Access." Despite every protocol drilled into him through years of service, Masson found himself guiding her to the terminal. She placed her palm against the scanner, which should have rejected any unauthorized user. But to his astonishment, the system immediately granted access. "How did you—" "No time," she interrupted, fingers flying across the interface. "Find my file." Masson hesitated only briefly before entering his command credentials. The system responded with an unexpected message. "Access granted. Priority override. Masson K0472. "I've never authorized an override for that classification," he muttered, confused. "You didn't," she replied cryptically. The screen filled with data mission reports, surveillance logs, and a designation that made no sense to Masson Guardian Protocol Subject 7. Before he could process any of it, another explosion rocked the facility closer this time. The lights flickered, then stabilized. "We have to move," Masson insisted, downloading what data he could to a portable drive. "Whatever answers you're looking for, they won't matter if we're dead." She nodded reluctantly, allowing him to guide her toward the emergency exit. The facility had descended into organized chaos, with defense teams rushing to repel the attackers. In the confusion, their escape through the medical wing went unnoticed. Masson led them to a maintenance corridor he'd memorized during his first briefing at the base standard procedure for any potential extraction scenario. What wasn't standard was helping a prisoner escape while under attack. "The data crystal," she said as they paused at a junction, her breathing labored from exertion. "Did you keep it?" Masson nodded, patting the secure pocket where he'd stashed it. "Though I have no way to read it. It's ancient tech." "Archivist Farron," she replied. "Records Division. He has the reader." The name startled Masson. Farron was a reclusive figure who managed the facility's historical archives, a position most active personnel regarded as irrelevant to current operations. How would this alien entity know of him? They continued through the labyrinthine corridors, the sounds of battle growing more distant. The blue-skinned woman weakened with each step, the temporary medical treatment clearly insufficient for her injuries. By the time they reached the Records Division, she could barely stand. The archives were deserted, most personnel having reported to battle stations. Masson helped the woman to a chair, then performed a quick security sweep. "Farron," he called out cautiously. A rustling came from behind a stack of physical data storage units, actual printed matter a rarity in the digital age. An elderly man emerged, his posture stooped from years, hunched over archival materials. "Captain Masson." Farron acknowledged without surprise. His eyes shifted to the blue-skinned woman. And Subject 7. I calculated only a 17% probability you would both arrive together. Masson's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon. You know her. Know of her, Farron corrected, approaching slowly. As do you, Captain, though you've been made to forget. What are you talking about? The archivist gestured to the data crystal protruding from Masson's pocket. The answers you seek are there, but time grows short. The attack is a diversion. They're not here for her. They're here to destroy all evidence of the Guardian Protocol. Masson looked between Farron and the weakening alien woman. Guardian Protocol, what is that? Show him, the blue-skinned woman whispered to Farron, before it's too late. The old archivist nodded gravely, retrieving an antiquated device from a hidden compartment in his desk. This reader predates the Coalition captain. It was preserved specifically for this contingency. He inserted the crystal, and a holographic display flickered to life between them. What Masson saw made his blood run cold. It was himself, years younger in a medical facility he didn't recognize. Beside him stood a blue-skinned being, not the woman he'd captured, but similar. They were conversing as colleagues, not adversaries. What is this? He demanded. The truth, Farron said simply, before the memory conditioning. The recording continued, showing Masson working alongside several blue-skinned individuals on what appeared to be a collaborative military project. The timestamp indicated it was from 2 years before the interplanetary war officially began. Project Guardian narrated a voice in the recording. A joint human-cerulean initiative to protect key personnel through quantum entanglement bonding. Each human subject will be paired with a cerulean guardian, creating a bioharmonic link that allows the guardian to sense and prevent mortal danger to their assigned protectee. The recording showed Masson volunteering for the procedure, shaking hands with the blue-skinned being who would become his assigned guardian. This can't be real, Masson said, though doubt had begun to erode his certainty. The ceruleans were our enemies in the war. They became the enemy, Farron corrected. After the coalition leadership changed hands, the new regime buried all evidence of prior cooperation and reframed the narrative. Those who knew too much had their memories altered or were eliminated. The blue-skinned woman, Subject 7, struggled to speak. You were important, strategic value. I was assigned to keep you alive. Masson's mind raced, assembling fragments that had never quite fit in his understanding of his own military career. The inexplicable luck that had seen him survive dozens of missions unscathed. The strange dreams of blue light that sometimes woke him in the night. The gaps in his service record that he'd attributed to classified operations. She's been protecting you for 7 years, Captain, Farron explained. Even after you were conditioned to hunt her kind. Even after every cerulean on coalition planets was declared an enemy combatant and executed or imprisoned. She never abandoned her post. A distant explosion shook the archives, sending dust filtering down from the ceiling. They're targeting this section, Farron observed grimly. They know we're accessing the records. Who is they? Masson demanded. The same people who ordered you to let her die, Farron replied. The architects of the war. They can't afford for the truth to emerge that the conflict was manufactured by power-hungry individuals within our own leadership. Another explosion closer this time. Warning klaxons indicated structural damage to the facility. We need to evacuate, Masson decided, moving to help Subject 7. No, she protested weakly. Too late for me. The bond is dying. Take the evidence, tell others. I'm not leaving you, Masson insisted, surprising himself with the vehemence in his voice. Farron pressed a data package into Masson's hand. All the evidence is here, the Guardian Protocol, the falsified war declaration, everything. There's an autonomous shuttle in Hangar 3. It's pre-programmed with coordinates to a cerulean sanctuary outpost. The building shook violently, and part of the ceiling collapsed near the entrance. Farron pushed them toward a concealed exit at the back of the archives. Go, I'll create a diversion. Before Masson could protest, the old archivist had disappeared into the smoke-filled corridor, shouting to draw attention away from their escape route. Masson half-carried Subject 7. Through the narrow maintenance passage, their progress slowed by her deteriorating condition. Her skin had begun to lose its luminescence, fading to a dull gray blue. "Stay with me," he urged, as they navigated the damaged facility. "Always have," she whispered, attempting a smile that became a grimace of pain. They emerged near the auxiliary hangars, now largely abandoned as personnel focused on defending the main complex. As Farron had promised, a small, unmarked shuttle waited in Hangar 3, its systems already active. Masson helped Subject 7 aboard, securing her in the co-pilot seat before taking the controls. The hangar doors were locked down due to the attack, but the shuttle systems interfaced smoothly with the bay controls, another indication that Farron's preparation had been thorough and long-standing. As the doors began to open, the shuttle's communication system activated unexpectedly. "Captain Masson," came Tarek's voice, tight with controlled rage. "Power down the shuttle immediately. This is your final warning." Masson glanced at Subject 7, who had slipped into unconsciousness, her breathing shallow and erratic. Whatever choice he made now, he couldn't unmake. "I can't do that, sir," he replied, initiating the launch sequence. "You're throwing away your career, your life for an enemy alien," Tarek said incredulously. "Think about what you're doing." "I am thinking," Masson replied, surprising himself with his calm certainty. "For the first time in years, I'm thinking clearly." He severed the communication link and accelerated through the partially opened hangar doors, scraping the shuttle's exterior, but emerging into the dust-hazed sky above the facility. Defense turrets tracked their escape, but no shots were fired either. The attacking force had disabled them, or someone in the command chain had issued a hold-fire order. The shuttle climbed rapidly through Arkan's thin atmosphere, automatic systems, plotting a course away from Coalition space. Masson turned his attention to Subject 7, using the onboard medical scanner to assess her condition. The results were grim. Multiple organ systems failing, severe internal damage from both the drone impact and the canyon collapse. The scanner estimated less than an hour of life remaining without advanced intervention. The shuttle's limited medical supplies couldn't provide. Masson set the autopilot and moved to her side, administering what pain relief the onboard kit contained. Her eyes fluttered open at his touch. "Did we escape?" she asked her translator, struggling to function. "Yes," he confirmed, taking her hand without thinking. "We're en route to the sanctuary coordinates." She smiled faintly. "Good. Others there. We'll help you understand." "Save your strength," Masson urged. "We'll arrive in 6 hours." She shook her head slightly. "Won't make it. Bond is breaking." "Bond." "Guardian bond." She explained each word clearly, an effort. "Quantum entanglement between us. Kept you safe all these years." Masson recalled the holographic recording, the procedure he had apparently volunteered for, but had no memory of. "That's how you always knew when I was in danger." She nodded. "Felt it through the bond. Every mission, every firefight." A flash of memory surfaced in Masson's mind, a near miss on his third deployment, when an enemy sniper's shot had somehow been deflected by an equipment malfunction. A transport crash he'd walked away from unscathed, while others perished. Countless battlefield moments when death had seemed certain, only to be averted by seemingly random circumstances. "You were there," he realized. "All those times, invisible, watching over me." "My purpose," she affirmed weakly. "Even after, they called us enemies." The shuttle's medical scanner beeped a warning her life signs were deteriorating rapidly. Masson felt an unexpected surge of desperation. "There must be something I can do," he insisted. "Some way to stabilize you until we reach the sanctuary." "Too late," she whispered. "Bond is too damaged." "Tell me your name," Masson said, suddenly realizing he had only ever thought of her as Subject 7, or the blue-skinned woman. "Your real name, not your designation." She made a sound that the translator couldn't process, a musical sequence that human vocal cords could never replicate. After a moment of struggle, the translator approximated, Alara. Alara, Masson, repeated the name, feeling strangely familiar on his tongue. I'm going to save you just as you've saved me countless times. He began searching the shuttle systems for any advanced medical protocols, any emergency procedures that might help. But with each passing minute, Alara's condition worsened. Her luminescence had faded almost completely, now her skin ashen. Kale, she said, using his first name with a familiarity that suggested deeper connection than captor and prisoner. Stop. Accept. I can't, he admitted, surprising himself with the depth of emotion in his voice. I can't just let you die. Not your fault, she assured him, her voice barely audible now. Mission complete. The medical scanner sounded another alarm as her vital signs dropped below sustainable levels. Masson abandoned the controls entirely, gathering her into his arms, as if physical contact could somehow transfer his strength to her. I'm sorry, he said, the words wholly inadequate for the weight of realization bearing down on him. I've been hunting the person who protected me all along. Alara's eyes found his, the violet glow dimmed, but still present. With tremendous effort, she raised a hand to touch his face, a gesture so intimate it stirred something deep in Masson's fractured memory. I spent my whole life protecting you, she whispered, her translator failing intermittently, and you were hunting me. There was no accusation in her tone, only a profound sadness that cut Masson more deeply than any battle wound ever had. He held her closer as tremors began to rack her body, the final systemic shutdown. Tell them, she managed through the spasms. Tell my people I completed my oath. I will, Masson promised, his military stoicism crumbling in the face of her sacrifice. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did, what was done to both of us. Her eyes closed. The medical scanner flatlined. In Masson's arms, Alara's body relaxed as her spirit departed the quantum bond between guardian and protectee, dissolving with her final breath. For the first time since his earliest combat missions, Captain Kale Masson wept. The sanctuary outpost orbited an uncharted moon, in what had once been disputed territory, now abandoned by coalition forces as strategically insignificant. As the shuttle approached, Masson expected defensive measures. Instead, the automated systems welcomed him with recognition protocols. Identity confirmed Captain Kale Masson Guardian Protocol Asset announced the docking computer. Emergency medical team standing by. Too late for that, Masson thought bitterly. He carried Alara's body from the shuttle himself, refusing the assistance of the blue-skinned ceruleans, who greeted him with expressions of shock and sorrow. They led him to a chamber designed for ceremonial purposes, where he gently laid her on a prepared platform. She completed her mission. He told the assembled ceruleans, his voice rough with emotion, he no longer attempted to hide. She never abandoned her post even when I became her hunter. An elder cerulean stepped forward, his skin a deeper blue than the others, marked with luminescent patterns that suggested authority or wisdom. The severance of a guardian bond is felt by all our kind, he said, his translator functioning perfectly. Alara's sacrifice will be honored, Captain Masson, but her mission is not complete until the truth is known. I have the evidence, Masson said, producing the data package Farron had given him. Everything about the Guardian Protocol, the manufactured war, all of it. The elder accepted it with reverence. This will help, but it is not enough. The most powerful testimony will be your own, a coalition hero telling the truth about how the war began. Masson's jaw tightened. I'll do whatever it takes to expose those responsible. They sent me to capture her, expecting me to let her die. They wanted to erase all evidence of what they'd done. And now I'm a deserter at best, a traitor at worst, Masson acknowledged grimly. But I won't hide. I'll testify to any neutral authority willing to listen. The elder nodded approvingly. There is another matter to discuss. Your protection. Masson frowned. My protection? The Guardian Protocol created a quantum bond between you and Alara. With her death, that bond is severed. For the first time in 7 years, you are truly vulnerable. The realization struck Masson with unexpected force. Throughout his military career, he had built a reputation for invincibility, but that had never been his doing. It had been Alara, constantly vigilant, interceding in ways he never perceived. "I'll take my chances," he said firmly. "I've lived a protected life while others died around me. That ends now." "A noble sentiment," the elder replied, "but tactically unsound. You are now the most important witness to a conspiracy that spans governments. They will stop at nothing to silence you." Before Masson could respond, another Cerulean approached, bearing a communication device. "Urgent transmission from Coalition Space, Elder Sareth, for Captain Masson." Surprised, Masson accepted the device. The holographic display activated, revealing the weathered face of Archivist Farron. "Captain," the old man greeted him, his image flickering with interference. "I see you reached the sanctuary safely." "Farron," Masson replied, relieved. "You survived the attack." "Barely," the archivist confirmed. "The facility is destroyed, but I managed to escape in the confusion. I'm transmitting from a secure location." "What's happening with command? Have they declared me rogue?" Farron's expression grew grave. "Yes and no. Officially, Captain Cale Masson was killed during the attack on Forward Operating Base Meridian. A hero's death defending his post against unknown assailants." Masson absorbed this with a mixture of relief and anger. "They're trying to control the narrative. Easier to claim I'm dead than explain why I defected." "Precisely. But there's more. The attack wasn't an isolated incident. Similar strikes have targeted every facility connected to the Guardian Protocol. They're systematically erasing all evidence." "But why now?" Masson questioned. "The war ended 3 years ago. The Guardian Protocol was apparently decommissioned before that." "Because of what's coming," Farron replied cryptically. "The same faction that orchestrated the war is positioning for something bigger. Your testimony and the evidence you carry could derail their plans." The transmission began to break up, interference patterns disrupting the image. "Farron, you're not clear. What plans?" "Find General Tariq," the archivist managed before the signal deteriorated completely. "He was there. Beginning." The transmission ended, leaving Masson with more questions than answers. Elder Sareth stepped forward once more. "General Tariq was involved in the initial phases of the Guardian Protocol. He withdrew his support when he realized how it was being weaponized." "Is he still alive?" "Unknown. He disappeared shortly before the war declaration. Some believe he went into hiding, others that he was eliminated by those who needed his silence." Masson paced the ceremonial chamber, military training reasserting itself as he processed the tactical situation. "I need to find him. If he was present at the creation of the protocol, he might know what they're planning now." "A dangerous undertaking," Sareth cautioned. "Without your guardian, you would be exposed to the full resources of those who wish this truth remained buried." Masson looked to where Alara's body lay, now surrounded by softly glowing crystalline structures the Ceruleans had placed around her. 7 years she had protected him, invisible and unthanked, maintaining her vigil even as he hunted her kind. What would she want him to do now? The answer came with surprising clarity. "I'll go," he decided. "But first I need to understand everything. About the Guardian Protocol, about Alara, about what was taken from my memory." Sareth nodded solemnly. "We can help with that. The severance of the bond may have already begun to restore some of your original memories. We can accelerate the process." "Do it," Masson said without hesitation. "Be warned," the elder cautioned. "The recovery will be painful. The Coalition's memory conditioning was thorough." "I don't care," Masson replied, his resolve hardening. "I owe her the truth." The treatment took place in a chamber, deep within the sanctuary, surrounded by technology Masson didn't recognize. Cerulean healers worked with quiet efficiency, applying translucent devices to his temples and monitoring displays that visualized his neural patterns. "We will not remove anything," Sareth explained, as they prepared. "Only restore what was suppressed. Your mind will need to reconcile two conflicting sets of memories. Masson nodded his understanding, bracing himself for whatever was to come. It began as a whisper in his mind, fragments of conversation he couldn't quite place. Then, images flashing disjointedly, a research facility bathed in blue light. Training exercises alongside cerulean partners. Alara's face uninjured and vibrant, explaining the quantum principles that would bind them. The whispers became voices. The images formed into sequences. Pain lanced through his skull, as neural pathways long suppressed reactivated, bringing with them a flood of memories that contradicted everything he thought he knew about the past 7 years. He remembered volunteering for the Guardian Protocol, an elite program that paired high-value human operatives with cerulean guardians, who could sense and prevent mortal danger to their protectees through a quantum entanglement bond. He remembered the months of training alongside Alara, learning to trust her intuitive understanding of threats before they manifested. Most devastatingly, he remembered their friendship, the easy camaraderie that had developed between Guardian and protectee. Not romantic, but deeply personal nonetheless. They had shared meals, stories, hopes for what the alliance between their peoples might accomplish. Then came the darker memories, the sudden leadership change in the Coalition High Command. New directives that isolated Guardian Protocol participants from each other. The gradual restrictions placed on cerulean movement. Finally, the betrayal waking in a medical facility, his mind scrubbed of the protocol's existence, reprogrammed with false histories that cast the ceruleans as infiltrators and enemies. He remembered nothing of this reprogramming itself, but the memories surrounding it formed a damning picture of orchestrated deception. When the procedure ended, Masson lay trembling on the treatment platform, his body drenched in sweat, his mind reeling from the cognitive dissonance of dual memories. The cerulean healers withdrew respectfully, leaving only Elder Sereth in attendance. "How much did you recover?" the elder asked quietly. Masson struggled to sit up, his head pounding with the effort of reconciling past and present. "Enough to know I've been living a lie, that we've all been manipulated into a war that should never have happened. And Alara." Masson closed his eyes, fresh grief washing over him as he remembered their last real conversation before his memories were altered, before he became her hunter instead of her partner. "We were friends," he said, simply the word wholly inadequate. She knew what was coming. She made me promise that if anything happened to separate us, I would trust her to find me again. "And she did," Sereth noted. "Even as the target of your hunt." "She never stopped protecting me." Masson affirmed, the full weight of her sacrifice crushing him anew. "Even knowing I would kill her if I caught her." "Such is the nature of the Guardian bond," Sereth explained. "It transcends circumstance, even conscious choice. Once established, it compels protection until death." Masson looked at the elder with sudden suspicion. "Are you saying she had no choice, that this bond forced her to protect me even after I became her enemy?" "The initial bond formation requires voluntary commitment," Sereth clarified. "But once forged, it creates an imperative that becomes integral to the Guardian's being. Alara chose you, Captain Masson. She chose to bind her life to yours, knowing the responsibilities it entailed." The distinction was crucial to Masson. He couldn't bear the thought that Alara's protection had been some form of biological compulsion rather than conscious sacrifice. "I need to honor what she did," he said firmly. "Find Tariq, expose the truth, stop whatever they're planning next." "We will help you," Sereth promised. "But first there is a cerulean tradition to observe, a farewell to the fallen Guardian." The ceremony took place as Arkin's distant sun set bathing the sanctuary in amber light that reminded Masson painfully of the planet where he had hunted Alara to her death. The ceruleans gathered in concentric circles around her body, which had been adorned with luminescent markings similar to those worn by the elders. Masson stood at the innermost circle, feeling conspicuously alien among the blue-skinned beings. Yet none showed resentment at his presence. If anything, they seemed to recognize his right to stand closest to her. Elder Sereth approached bearing a crystalline vessel containing a swirling blue essence. "This is the quantum resonance of Alara's guardian bond," he explained. "Extracted before its complete dissolution, it contains the echo of her connection to you, her memories, her purpose, her protection." He offered the vessel to Masson, who accepted it with uncertainty. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "That is for you to decide," Sareth replied. "Some choose to release it to the cosmic void, symbolizing freedom from duty. Others preserve it as remembrance. The choice belongs to the protectee." Masson studied the swirling essence, mesmerized by its gentle pulsation. Within it, he sensed an impression of Alara, not her consciousness or spirit, but the energetic signature of her dedication to his safety. Without fully understanding why he knew what he had to do, "I want to release it," he decided. Not to void her duty, she fulfilled that beyond any reasonable expectation, but to free her essence from the bond that compelled her sacrifice. Sareth nodded approvingly. "A worthy choice. When you are ready." Masson stepped forward, standing directly beside Alara's body. The gathered ceruleans began a harmonic vocalization, a mourning song that needed no translation, its emotional resonance transcending language. He opened the vessel, and the blue essence spiraled upward, hovering momentarily before him. In that suspended moment, Masson experienced a final impression from the quantum remnant, not words, but a sense of completion of peace. "Thank you," he whispered, as the essence dispersed, dissolving into motes of light that scattered like stars across the ceremonial chamber before fading from visibility. As the last of the quantum resonance dissipated, Alara's body began to transform. The dull, gray blue of her skin lightened, becoming translucent, then crystalline. Within minutes, her physical form had transmuted entirely into a luminescent crystal structure shaped perfectly to her form, but composed of light rather than matter. "The final transition," Sareth explained quietly. "Her essence returns to the quantum realm from which our consciousness originally emerged. Her physical form becomes a memorial, a light memory that will endure for generations." Masson stood in reverent silence as the transformation completed the crystal formation, glowing with a soft violet light that reminded him of Alara's eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion, but resolute with purpose. "I need to go back," he said. "Back to Coalition space. I need to find Tariq and expose the truth." "It will be dangerous," Sareth cautioned. "Those who orchestrated the war will stop at nothing to prevent the truth from emerging." "I've lived 7 years under unearned protection," Masson replied. "It's time I faced real risk for something that matters." The preparation for his return to Coalition space took 3 days. Masson spent absorbing information about the true history of human-cerulean relations and the events that had led to the manufactured conflict. He studied the evidence package Farron had provided, committing key details to memory, in case the physical data was lost or destroyed. The Ceruleans provided him with a modified scout vessel, small enough to avoid standard detection grids, but equipped with technology that would give him a fighting chance if pursued. They also shared what intelligence they had on General Tariq's last known whereabouts, a frontier settlement called New Damascus, on the edge of Coalition territory. On the eve of his departure, Elder Sareth presented him with one final gift. "This contains a fraction of Alara's quantum resonance," he said, offering a small crystal pendant. "Not enough to restore the Guardian bond, but sufficient to create a momentary disruption in targeting systems focused on you. It may save your life, once use it wisely." Masson accepted the pendant, securing it beneath his clothing. "I'll return with Tariq if I can find him. The truth needs to be heard from both of us." "Be vigilant," Sareth advised. "The Sanctuary will monitor for your signal, but we cannot intercede in Coalition space without risking open conflict." "Understood. I don't expect rescue if I'm compromised." The Elder studied him with ancient eyes. "You have changed, Captain Masson. The restoration of your memories has transformed you." "Not just the memories," Masson admitted. "Alara's sacrifice. It demands something of me. Something better than I was. Then honor her by surviving, Sareth said simply. The truth cannot be told by the dead. New Damascus crouched on the edge of a terraformed valley, its architecture a blend of frontier pragmatism and refugee improvisation. Originally established as a mining outpost, it had evolved into a haven for those disillusioned with coalition governance veterans, displaced civilians, and others seeking to rebuild lives shattered by the war. Masson approached cautiously, having landed his vessel in the rugged highlands, 10 kilometers from the settlement. He had abandoned his coalition uniform, adopting instead the weathered garb of a freelance cargo hauler, one of many who plied the frontier routes, asking few questions and answering fewer. The settlement's main thoroughfare buzzed with the controlled chaos of commerce as Masson made his way toward the coordinates Sareth had provided. Nothing marked the nondescript building as significant, but Masson had spent years in reconnaissance. He recognized the subtle signs of a location under discreet surveillance. 2 observation points, minimal electronic screening, human sentries, rather than automated systems. Whoever occupied this building valued privacy, but lacked military-grade resources. Masson entered what appeared to be a common house, a frontier establishment offering food, drink, and basic lodging to travelers. He ordered a synth meal at the automated counter, then took a seat with clear sight lines to both the entrance and the back rooms. His patience was rewarded within the hour. A server human, not automated, approached with a beverage he hadn't ordered. Compliments of the proprietor. The woman said, her eyes conveying a message beyond her words. Masson nodded his thanks, noting the small data chip embedded in the coaster beneath the glass. After a calculated interval, he pocketed it and departed, leaving payment for a meal barely touched. The chip contained only coordinates and a time: midnight at a location in the highlands, not far from where he had concealed his vessel. Someone had been expecting him, or someone like him. He spent the intervening hours performing counter-surveillance measures, ensuring he wasn't followed as he made his way back into the rugged terrain surrounding New Damascus. The designated location proved to be a natural cave system, its entrance concealed by indigenous vegetation that had adapted to the terraforming process. Precisely at midnight, lights activated within the cave, illuminating a path inward. Masson drew his sidearm, not coalition issue but a frontier model provided by the Ceruleans, and advanced cautiously. The passage descended for nearly 50 meters before opening into a chamber equipped as a rudimentary command center. At its center stood a man Masson recognized immediately, despite the years that had aged him. General Tariq. He acknowledged, lowering his weapon, but not holstering it. The general, gray-haired, now leaner than in Masson's restored memories, studied him with shrewd eyes. Captain Masson, when my informants reported a coalition officer asking questions about me, I expected intelligence division, not one of my former Guardian protocol assets. Former being the operative word, Masson replied. I'm officially dead according to coalition records. Convenient, Tariq observed, for both sides. I'm not here on behalf of the coalition, Masson clarified. I know the truth about the Guardian protocol, about how it was weaponized against both humans and Ceruleans, about the war. Tariq's expression remained carefully neutral. And how did you come by this truth, Captain? From Alara, Masson said, the name still causing a pang of grief. My Guardian, the one I was programmed to hunt after they wiped my memories. The one who died protecting me even as I tried to capture her. Something in Tariq's composure cracked a flash of genuine emotion breaking through his tactical reserve. She found you, despite everything. She never stopped looking, Masson confirmed. Never stopped protecting me even when I became her hunter. Tariq gestured to a chair, suddenly seeming older, wearier. Sit, Captain. This conversation requires context you may still be missing. Masson complied, but maintained his alertness. 7 years of military discipline didn't dissolve overnight. The Guardian Protocol was my initiative. Tariq began the confession, carrying the weight of long-held guilt. A genuine attempt at interspecies cooperation. The Ceruleans possessed quantum sensory capabilities. We couldn't replicate the ability to perceive probable threats before they materialized. We had military resources they lacked. It seemed an ideal partnership. What went wrong? Masson prompted, when the general fell silent. Politics, Tariq replied bitterly. Power, fear. When Admiral Vega assumed control of the Coalition Defense Council, he saw the protocol not as cooperation, but as vulnerability. Humans bound to alien guardians, dependent on them for protection. He framed it as a security risk, claimed the Ceruleans were establishing control over our key military personnel through the quantum bond. That's not how the bond worked, Masson objected. It was one way they sensed our danger, not controlled our actions. Facts rarely matter when fear is the motivator, Tariq said grimly. Vega used the protocol as justification for a preemptive strike against Cerulean outposts. When I opposed him, I was relieved of command. When I threatened to expose his plans, I became a target. I barely escaped with my life. He gestured around at the Spartan Command Center. I've been here ever since, gathering evidence, building a network of those who know fragments of the truth, waiting for the right moment, the right ally. And now, Masson questioned. Now we have a narrow window of opportunity, Tariq replied, activating a holographic display. Admiral Vega is planning something called the Purge Protocol, a final solution to what he calls the Cerulean question. From what my sources have gathered, it involves large-scale deployment of quantum-disruptive weaponry against all potential Cerulean habitats. The display showed technical specifications for devices. Masson had never seen weapons designed to destabilize the quantum field that sustained Cerulean physiology. This would be genocide. He realized horror mounting as he grasped the scale of the plan. Not just genocide, Tariq corrected grimly. These weapons would create cascading quantum disruptions throughout real space. They wouldn't just kill Ceruleans, they'd create persistent dead zones where no quantum-based technology could function, including most of our advanced systems. He'd cripple interstellar civilization to eliminate the Ceruleans, Masson concluded. Why would anyone support this madness? Because Vega has convinced key coalition leaders that the Ceruleans are regrouping for another war, a lie, but an effective one. Fear is a powerful motivator, Captain, and few humans have ever met a Cerulean, let alone form the kind of bond you shared with Alara. Masson processed this information, military training automatically assessing strategic implications. When is this purge scheduled to begin? 3 weeks, Tariq replied. The weapons are being assembled at a classified facility in the Orin system. Once deployed, they can't be recalled or disabled. Then we stop them before deployment, Masson said with cold certainty. We expose Vega and the truth about the war. Easier said than done, Tariq cautioned. I've spent years building evidence against Vega, but he controls the military courts, the media outlets, everything that matters. We need something undeniable, and we need a way to broadcast it across every coalition channel simultaneously. Masson reached into his pack, extracting the data package from the Cerulean sanctuary. We have the evidence. All the Guardian Protocol records, the falsified intelligence that justified the war, everything. What we need is the broadcast. Tariq studied the data package with growing interest. This is comprehensive. But Vega controls all major communication networks. We'd need access to the Central Broadcasting Authority, and that facility is more heavily guarded than Coalition High Command itself. Then, we don't use the official channels, Masson decided. We use the emergency override system. Tariq's eyes narrowed. That's been inactive since the war ended. But not dismantled, Masson countered. My clearance, presuming it hasn't been revoked with my death, would grant access to the primary relay station on Gannis Colony. One transmission from there would override all coalition frequencies. A suicide mission, Tariq assessed bluntly. The moment you access the system, every security protocol in the sector would activate. I had 7 years of unearned protection, Masson replied, the crystal pendant from Sereth heavy against his chest. I can risk one real mission that matters. Tariq studied him with new respect. Your guardian chose well, Captain. But I won't send you alone. My network includes others who know fragments of the truth, veterans technicians, even some officials who suspect something is wrong, but lack the full picture. Together we might succeed where either of us alone would fail.
How quickly can they be assembled?
3 days, Tariq estimated. Maybe 4. We'll need that time to prepare anyway. The Gannis relay station hasn't been upgraded since the war, old security protocols, old access methods. We'll need specialized equipment. Masson nodded his mind, already mapping the operation. I'll make contact with the Cerulean Sanctuary. They need to disperse their people, get as many to safety as possible in case we fail. Use this, Tariq said, offering a communications device unlike standard coalition technology. Untraceable at least by current military standards. Better not to risk your vessel's systems being monitored. As Masson reached for the device, Tariq caught his wrist. Captain, what Alara did continuing to protect you, even after everything was twisted, that kind of loyalty deserves to be honored. If we succeed, how will you ensure her sacrifice is remembered? The question struck Masson with unexpected force. In the urgency of addressing the Purge Protocol, he had focused on stopping future atrocities rather than commemorating past sacrifices. By telling the truth, he said finally. All of it. Not just about the manufactured war or Vega's plans, but about what the Guardians did for us. What Alara did for me. Her name will be the first one I speak when we broadcast. Tariq released his wrist, satisfied. Good. Because without that, without acknowledging the individual lives lost to this deception, we're no better than those who orchestrated it. The plan took shape over 4 tense days of preparation. Tariq's network proved more extensive than Masson had anticipated. Frontier veterans, displaced scientists, even a handful of lower-level coalition officials who had harbored doubts about the official narrative of the war. Together, they assembled the specialized equipment needed to access the Gannis relay station and prepared the evidence for broadcast. Communication with the Cerulean Sanctuary confirmed Masson's worst fears. The quantum disruption weapons Vega planned to deploy would not only kill all Ceruleans within their considerable range, but would render vast regions of space permanently uninhabitable for their species. Elder Sareth pledged to evacuate as many of their people as possible to distant sectors, but warned that complete evacuation was impossible in the time frame available. On the 5th day, as final preparations were underway, one of Tariq's observers reported unusual activity in New Damascus Coalition intelligence officers conducting discreet inquiries about recent arrivals. They're looking for you, Tariq concluded grimly. Somehow they've tracked you here. Impossible, Masson objected. The vessel's signature is masked and I've followed every counter-surveillance protocol. Unless... Tariq's expression darkened. The quantum pendant. If it contains resonance from your guardian bond, they might be able to detect it. The Coalition has been researching quantum detection technology for years. Masson instinctively touched the crystal beneath his clothing. The thought of abandoning Alara's final gift felt like a betrayal, yet keeping it endangered everything they were working toward. I'll leave it here, he decided reluctantly. When we return, if we return, I'll reclaim it. Tariq nodded approval. We move tonight before they can establish a perimeter around New Damascus. The Gannis relay station is 16 hours by stealth transport. If all goes according to plan, we'll broadcast within 24 hours.
And if the plan fails?
Then we've still created a record, Tariq replied. I've arranged for copies of the evidence to be dispersed to key locations throughout Coalition and neutral space. If we fail, others will continue. Masson removed the quantum pendant, placing it carefully in a small stasis field Tariq provided. For Alara, he said quietly, and all the others who were betrayed. The journey to Gannis Colony proceeded with grim efficiency. Their vessel, a modified transport, with falsified registry, attracted no special attention among the commercial traffic flowing through the system's checkpoints. Gannis itself was primarily an agricultural colony. its strategic importance long since diminished after the war's end. The relay station occupied a remote plateau, maintained by minimal personnel and automated systems. Tariq led a diversionary team to draw away the station's security detail, a simple but effective ruse involving a malfunctioning transport that required emergency assistance. Meanwhile, Masson and 3 specialists from Tariq's network infiltrated the facility through maintenance access points, identified in outdated schematics. "Central control should be 2 levels up," whispered Lena, a former communications technician who had served at a similar relay during the war. "Minimal staffing after midnight shift change." Masson nodded, leading them through the utilitarian corridors with practiced stealth. His military instincts, honed through years of reconnaissance, guided them past automated security measures and the occasional patrol drone. They reached the central control hub without detection, a testament to both their preparation and the relaxed security protocols of a supposedly obsolete facility. 2 technicians monitored the system, neither expecting trouble in this backwater assignment. Masson subdued them efficiently, using non-lethal pressure points rather than weapons. "Secure them," he instructed his team. "No unnecessary harm." As Lena and the others restrained the technicians, Masson approached the main broadcast console. It was older technology, just as Tariq had predicted, which worked in their favor. Modern systems would have required continuous biometric authentication. This one needed only his command codes and genetic verification. "Beginning access sequence," he announced, placing his palm against the scanner. "If my clearance has been revoked, we'll have approximately 3 minutes before automated security responds." The system hummed as it processed his identity. Masson held his breath, acutely aware that everything the Cerulean survival justice for Alara, the truth about the war, hinged on whether his officially dead status had been fully implemented in the Coalition's bureaucratic systems. The console chimed acceptance. "Clearance confirmed, Captain Kale, Masson Reconnaissance Division," announced the system's automated voice. "Access granted to emergency broadcast protocols." Relief washed through him, immediately replaced by focused determination. "Lena, begin data upload. Eric's monitor external communications for any response. Valen, secure our exit route." As his team executed their assignments with practiced efficiency, Masson prepared the broadcast message, a concise introduction to frame the evidence that would follow. The truth, unvarnished and complete. "Upload at 60%, Lena reported. "System accepting data packets without flags." "External channels still clear," Eric's confirmed. "No indication our access has been detected." "Too easy," warned Masson's combat instincts. After a lifetime of military service, he recognized the silent alarm of impending ambush. "Check secondary security protocols," he ordered sharply. "They might be letting us proceed while summoning response teams." Eric's fingers flew across his portable scanner. "You're right, there's a suppressed alert transmitting on a sub-channel. Military frequency, high encryption." "How long until response?" "Minutes at most. Local garrison would have rapid deployment capability." Masson made a swift tactical assessment. "Continue the upload. I'll record the introduction now, set it for immediate broadcast once the data transfer completes. We'll need to be ready to move the instant it transmits." He positioned himself before the recording sensors, drawing a deep breath to steady his resolve. This would likely be his final act as a Coalition officer. From this moment forward, he would be branded a traitor by those in power. For Alara, he reminded himself. For the truth. The recording indicator activated, and Masson began speaking with the clear authority that had distinguished his military career. "I am Captain Kale, Masson, Coalition Reconnaissance Division. By now, official channels have reported my death during an attack on Forward Operating Base Meridian. That report is false, one of many falsehoods perpetuated by those who control our military and government." He continued without hesitation, summarizing the Guardian Protocol, the quantum bond between humans and Ceruleans, and the manufactured conflict that had resulted in countless deaths on both sides. The evidence I am about to present proves that Admiral Vega and his allies orchestrated the interplanetary war for political gain, deliberately falsifying intelligence to turn former allies into enemies. It further reveals their current plan, the Purge protocol designed to eliminate all cerulean life through quantum disruption weapons that would render vast regions of space uninhabitable. Masson paused, then added what mattered most to him personally. I speak also for Alara, my cerulean guardian, who continued to protect me even after I was conditioned to hunt her. She died in my arms, having sacrificed everything to uphold a bond I had been made to forget. Her final words were, "I spent my whole life protecting you, and you were hunting me." There was no accusation in her voice, only sorrow for what had been stolen from both of us. "Upload complete," Lena interjected urgently. "Security teams inbound multiple vectors." Masson nodded acknowledgement but continued his recording. "I present this evidence not to undermine the coalition, but to save it from those who would sacrifice both our principles and our future. Judge for yourselves. The complete data follows." He terminated the recording and activated the broadcast sequence. "Set for immediate transmission across all emergency channels. Let's move." As they gathered their equipment, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with security forces, the console suddenly emitted a harsh tone. "Broadcast denied," announced the automated system. "Emergency override protocol Sigma-9 in effect." "What's happening?" Masson demanded. Lena worked frantically at the console. "Someone's blocking the transmission remotely high-level override. They knew we were coming." "Can you bypass it?" "Not from here," she admitted. "They've locked out the entire relay station. We'd need direct access to the transmission array itself." "Where is it?" "Roof level, but it'll be the first place they secure." Masson made an instant decision. "New plan. You three exfiltrate through our planned escape route. I'll create a diversion, then attempt to reach the array manually." "That's suicide," Eric's protested. "The evidence won't matter if there's no one left to verify it." "Tariq has the originals," Masson countered. "This isn't our only chance, just our first attempt. Go. That's an order." The three specialists exchanged glances, then nodded reluctantly. Years of military conditioning recognized the logic of preserving the mission over any individual, even its leader. As they disappeared through the maintenance access, Masson gathered the portable data module containing their evidence. The main broadcast had been blocked, but perhaps a localized transmission might still be possible enough to reach the colony below, if not the wider coalition. He moved swiftly through the facility, evading the first wave of security forces through intimate knowledge of tactical deployment patterns. The roof access was predictably guarded, but the guards expected attackers coming up, not an infiltrator already within the facility moving down from a higher level. Masson emerged onto the roof as Gannis's primary sun crested the horizon, bathing the transmission array in golden light. The massive installation hummed with energy, its components oriented toward the relay satellites in orbit. He approached the manual access terminal, grateful for the older technology that still incorporated physical override capabilities. Modern systems would have been completely impervious to his efforts. This one might just offer a chance. His fingers flew across the interface, applying his command authentication directly to the array, rather than through the central system. It accepted his credentials, but warned of conflicts with existing security protocols. "Override security protocol, Sigma-9, he commanded. "Emergency authentication, Masson K0472. "Unable to comply," responded the system. "Protocol Sigma-9 requires Admiral-level authorization to override." Masson swore under his breath. So close, yet insurmountably far. Without Admiral-level clearance, the transmission would remain blocked. The rooftop door burst open, security forces pouring through with weapons drawn. Hands visible, step away from the terminal. Masson raised his hands slowly, mind racing for alternatives. The data module remained secured at his hip, if he could just find a way to transmit even a portion of it. "Captain Cale Masson," came a familiar voice from among the security detail. Intelligence Officer Tarek emerged his sharp features, set in an expression of calculated triumph. Officially deceased, yet remarkably active for a dead man. Tarek Masson acknowledged coldly. Still doing Vega's dirty work, I see. Admiral Vega is securing humanity's future, Tarek replied. A concept that seems to have escaped you since your defection. Is that what we're calling it when someone refuses to participate in genocide? Tarek's expression hardened. The Purge Protocol is a necessary security measure against an existential threat. The Ceruleans and their quantum manipulation pose an unacceptable risk to human autonomy. That's a lie, and somewhere inside that politician's mind of yours you know it, Masson challenged. The Ceruleans never posed a threat. The Guardian Protocol was working exactly as designed, until Vega decided he needed an enemy to consolidate power. An appealingly simple narrative, Tarek said dismissively. Reality is more complex. The quantum bond created dependencies we couldn't control or predict. What began as protection could easily become manipulation. Is that how you justify hunting them to extinction theoretical risks? Enough debate, Tarek snapped, gesturing to his security team. Secure the prisoner and the data module. Admiral Vega will want to interrogate him personally. As the guards approached, Masson felt the weight of Alara's sacrifice pressing upon him. He had failed to broadcast the truth, failed to honor her memory, failed to prevent the coming genocide. The quantum pendant that might have given him one chance at escape remained in New Damascus safely hidden, but utterly useless. The guards secured his wrists with electronic restraints, the familiar click of locking mechanisms signaling the end of his mission. Tarek personally removed the data module, examining it with clinical interest. Fascinating, he commented. Coalition encryption but Cerulean storage architecture. Your new blue friends are certainly resourceful. They were our allies once, Masson reminded him. They could be again. A sentimental perspective. Tarek dismissed securing the module in his own protective case. Humanity cannot afford sentimentality in matters of species survival. As they led him from the rooftop, Masson caught a final glimpse of the transmission array silhouetted against the rising sun. So close to exposing the truth, yet ultimately defeated by the same system he had served faithfully for years. But as Tarek had said, reality was complex. This failure didn't mean the end of resistance. Tariq remained free with copies of the evidence. The diversion team would have escaped during the security force's focus on the relay station. The mission could continue even if Masson himself would not be part of it. He thought of Alara, who had protected him for 7 years, without recognition or gratitude. If she could maintain her vigil through such adversity, he could endure whatever came next with similar resolve. The transport vessel that arrived to collect Masson bore Admiral Vega's personal insignia, an unusual deployment of high command resources for a single prisoner. As they prepared him for transit, securing him with additional restraints designed specifically for high-value detainees, Masson observed the heightened security with professional assessment. The Admiral must be concerned if he's sending his personal transport, he commented to Tarek, probing for any useful intelligence. Admiral Vega recognizes the symbolic value of your capture, Tarek replied, carefully neutral. A decorated officer turned traitor makes for a potent example. Or a potent martyr, Masson countered. Tarek studied him with clinical interest. Is that what you imagine, that your death would somehow galvanize opposition? He shook his head. The coalition public barely remembers the Ceruleans. Your misguided crusade will die with you forgotten by history. The transport ascended through Gannis's atmosphere, its military-grade inertial dampeners ensuring a smooth transition to orbital space. Through the small viewport near his secured position, Masson watched the colony recede, wondering if he would ever see planetary surface again. High-value prisoners were typically held in orbital facilities, isolated, secure, and far from potential sympathizers. What surprised him was their apparent destination. Rather than heading toward any known detention facility, the transport adjusted course toward a massive vessel at the edge of the system, a command carrier bearing Admiral Vega's personal insignia. The indomitable, Masson recognized. Vega's flagship during the final offensive of the war. The admiral prefers to handle sensitive matters personally. Tarek confirmed something akin to pride in his voice, especially those connected to the Purge Protocol. Hours later, Masson stood in the massive Tactical Operations Center of the Indomitable, surrounded by armed guards, but finally face to face with the architect of both the war and the coming genocide. Admiral Vega had aged since Masson's restored memories of him, his hair now completely silver, his posture slightly stooped, but his eyes retained the calculating intensity that had characterized his rise to power. Captain Masson, Vega, greeted him, voice resonant with practiced authority. Or, should I say, the late Captain Masson, your obituary was quite moving. Heroic last stand against unknown assailants, posthumous commendation for valor. A fitting end to an exemplary career. I prefer the truth to a convenient fiction, Masson replied evenly. The truth, Vega repeated, as if testing the word for flaws. An elusive concept, especially in matters of interspecies relations and military necessity. Your truth and mine might differ substantially. Genocide isn't subject to interpretation, Admiral. Vega's expression hardened momentarily, before settling into practiced diplomatic neutrality. A provocative term and wholly inaccurate. The Purge Protocol is a defensive measure against an existential threat. The Ceruleans' quantum manipulation capabilities pose an unacceptable risk to human autonomy. You keep saying that, Masson observed, yet in 7 years of the Guardian Protocol's operation, not a single instance of Cerulean manipulation was documented. Only protection. Because we intervened before their long-term strategy could unfold, Vega countered smoothly. Their quantum bonding process created dependencies that could have eventually compromised our entire command structure. We acted preemptively. Masson studied the Admiral, recognizing the practiced certainty of a man who had repeated a lie so often he had come to believe it himself. Where is Alara's body? He asked abruptly, changing tactics. The question visibly startled Vega, a rare crack in his composed exterior. The Cerulean specimen captured at Meridian disposed of, according to protocol, I would assume. Her name was Alara, Masson insisted. She was my assigned guardian under a program you originally supported, before you decided that war served your political ambitions better than peace. Your emotional attachment to the alien is precisely why the Guardian Protocol was fundamentally flawed, Vega replied, regaining his composure. It created irrational loyalties that superseded duty to humanity. Is that why you had our memories altered to eliminate those irrational loyalties? Vega smiled thinly. A necessary security measure. The quantum bond created neural patterns that made conventional separation impossible. Memory reconfiguration was the only humane alternative. Humane, Masson repeated bitterly, while you hunted the Ceruleans to near extinction. A regrettable necessity. And the Purge Protocol. Is that another regrettable necessity? Weapons that will render entire sectors uninhabitable for centuries. Something shifted in Vega's expression, surprise quickly masked. You're remarkably well informed for a rogue officer. Who else knows about the Purge specifications? Masson remained silent, unwilling to compromise Tariq's network. Vega studied him thoughtfully. It doesn't matter. The weapons are already being deployed. Within days, the Cerulean question will be permanently resolved. Days, Masson echoed, genuine shock breaking through his military discipline. Tariq's intelligence indicated weeks. Too late, he realized his error. Vega's eyes narrowed at the name. Ah, so Tariq still lives. I had wondered. The Admiral activated a communication panel. Security initiate immediate search of all records for communications or transport registries connected to former General Aram Tariq. Priority Alpha. Turning back to Masson, he continued conversationally. You've actually done me a service, Captain. Tariq has been a persistent irritant, collecting fragments of classified information without understanding the larger strategic imperative. Neutralizing him will remove the final significant opposition to the purge deployment. You won't find him, Masson said, trying to recover from his tactical error. And even if you did, the evidence is already distributed. The truth about the war, about the Guardian Protocol, all of it. Distributed to whom? Vega questioned. Frontier settlements. Disaffected veterans without mainstream communication channels. Their voices are merely whispers in the void. The coalition public accepts the official narrative because it offers security and certainty in an uncertain universe. He gestured expansively at the tactical displays surrounding them, each showing aspects of coalition military deployments throughout known space. This is humanity's domain now, Captain. Hard-won through difficult but necessary decisions. The Ceruleans represented an unacceptable variable in that equation. Their elimination ensures our species' continued independence and security. Masson recognized the futility of further argument. Vega's worldview was hermetically sealed, impervious to moral challenges or factual contradictions. He had built his career on the manufactured conflict, staked his legacy on the final solution to the Cerulean threat. No evidence would sway him from that course. What happens now? Masson asked, changing tactics. A military tribunal, public execution of the traitor. Nothing so dramatic, Vega replied. You'll be held in isolation until the purge is complete. After that, perhaps rehabilitation might be possible. Your skills are valuable even if your judgment has been compromised by alien influence. You still don't understand, Masson said quietly. Alara never influenced me. She protected me at the cost of her own life, even when I was hunting her. If you think I would ever serve the system that betrayed that sacrifice, you fundamentally misunderstand human loyalty. Vega's expression hardened. We shall see. Isolation has a way of clarifying perspective. He nodded to the guards. Take him to secure holding. Full monitoring, no external communications. As they led him from the tactical center, Masson caught a final glimpse of the deployment maps and noticed something Vega had inadvertently revealed. The purge weapons weren't merely in production. They were already positioned throughout former Cerulean territories, awaiting only final activation. Days, not weeks, the genocide was imminent. The secure holding cell aboard the Indomitable reflected Admiral Vega's meticulous attention to detail. No obvious surveillance devices yet. Masson had no doubt every movement, every word was being monitored. The space was clinically austere. A bunk, sanitation facilities, nothing that could be repurposed as a weapon or communication device. For 3 days, Masson endured isolation, broken only by automated meal deliveries and perfunctory medical scans. No interrogation, no further conversation with Vega or Tarek. The Admiral's strategy was transparent. Keep him contained and isolated until the purge was complete, rendering any potential warning moot. On the 4th day, the routine changed. The cell door opened to admit a medical technician, accompanied by the standard security detail. Cognitive assessment protocol. The technician announced clinically, activating a scanner. Admiral's orders. Masson submitted to the procedure with outward compliance, inwardly alert for any opportunity the change in routine might present. The scanner hummed as it mapped his neural patterns, comparing them to baseline measurements presumably taken during his military service. Anomalous patterns detected, the technician reported to the security team. Consistent with quantum resonance exposure, he adjusted the scanner settings. Further evaluation required to determine extent of alien influence. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Is it contagious? The technician's expression remained professionally neutral. Quantum resonance isn't pathogenic, but prolonged exposure can create persistent neural modifications. Subject requires isolation protocols. He's already in maximum security, the guard pointed out. Medical isolation, the technician clarified. Different protocols, different facility. He tapped instructions into his datapad. Authorization received. Transfer to medical containment, Deck 17. Masson maintained his passive demeanor while mentally mapping the Indomitable's layout, based on his military knowledge. Deck 17 would be near the ship's medical center, less secure than his current location with potential access to communication systems, or even escape craft if the opportunity presented itself. The transfer proceeded with military efficiency. 2 guards, the technician, and Masson in motion through the carrier's labyrinthine corridors. Standard procedure for prisoner movement within a secured vessel, enough personnel to control the detainee without drawing unnecessary attention or depleting security resources. They were midway to their destination when the ship's lighting suddenly shifted to amber, the universal indicator for non-critical system malfunction. "Attention all personnel," announced the automated system. "Localized environmental control issue detected on decks 15 through 19. Non-essential personnel should evacuate affected areas until resolution." The security team hesitated, looking to the technician for guidance. "Medical containment is still our priority," he decided. "We continue as planned." As they resumed their course, Masson noted with tactical assessment that the corridors had emptied of regular personnel responding to the evacuation order. Fewer potential witnesses, fewer individuals to intervene if he attempted escape. Something's wrong," one guard muttered as they entered a junction where environmental systems were audibly malfunctioning. "That doesn't sound like a standard fluctuation." The technician consulted his datapad. "Alternative route available through Maintenance Sector 12B. Follow me." They diverted into a narrower utility corridor, less monitored, less trafficked. Masson's combat instincts registered the improving tactical situation with each step. 3 against 1 remained poor odds, but significantly better than facing the carrier's full security complement. The opportunity came unexpectedly. As they approached another junction, a maintenance panel exploded outward in a shower of sparks, temporarily blinding the lead guard. In the moment of confusion, a figure emerged from the smoke, moving with practiced military precision to disable the second guard before anyone could react. Masson didn't hesitate. With his hands still bound, he drove his shoulder into the distracted technician, knocking him against the corridor wall, while the unknown assailant neutralized the first guard with a precision strike to the carotid pressure point. As the smoke cleared, Masson found himself face to face with someone he recognized from his restored memories, a woman he had trained with years ago before the memory conditioning. "Commander Lin," he acknowledged, genuinely surprised. "Captain Masson," she replied efficiently, disabling his restraints. "Extraction Team Alpha. General Tariq sends his regards." "How did you get aboard the Indomitable?" Masson asked, as she handed him the unconscious guard's sidearm. "There are more of us than Vega realizes," Lin explained, securing the unconscious personnel with their own restraints. Sleeper agents within the coalition military people, whose memories were partially restored by Tariq's team. "We've been waiting for the right moment to act." "That moment is now," Masson stated grimly. "The purge weapons are deployed and awaiting activation. We have days at most." Lin nodded. "We know. That's why we're here. Tariq has a plan, but we needed you to execute it." "Me specifically." "Your command code's your biometric authorization," she clarified. "You had highest-level access to the Guardian protocol systems that might be repurposed to counter the purge weapons." Hope flared briefly in Masson's mind. "Where's Tariq now?" "Safe house on Europa. Secondary extraction team is standing by with a shuttle in Hangar Bay 7. We need to move quickly. The environmental malfunction won't distract security for long." As they moved through the utility corridors, avoiding main passageways, Lin briefed him on the situation. Tariq had assembled a coalition of allies, former Guardian Protocol participants, whose memories had been partially restored, Cerulean sympathizers within the coalition, and military personnel who harbored doubts about the official war narrative. "The evidence you gathered was crucial," she explained. "We couldn't broadcast it coalition-wide, but Tariq managed targeted transmissions to key individuals, people in positions to help. And the purge weapons. That's the critical mission," Lin confirmed. "From what we've gathered, they operate on a quantum frequency designed to disrupt cerulean physiology. But any quantum-based system can be countered if you can generate an opposing frequency. The Guardian Protocol, Masson realized. The quantum entanglement technology that linked Guardians to protectees. Exactly. Tariq believes we can reprogram the remaining protocol equipment to generate a counter-resonance field, not enough to stop the purge entirely, but enough to create safe zones where Ceruleans could survive. They paused at a junction, checking for security patrols before proceeding toward the hangar bays. "There's something you should know," Lynn said, her expression grave. "About Alara." Masson's heart constricted at the name. "What about her?" Her body wasn't disposed of as Vega claimed. It was preserved for study, the most intact Cerulean specimen they had captured. Tariq's sources indicate it's being held at the same facility where the purge activation codes are stored. The information hit Masson with physical force. Ilara not given the dignity of final transition, but kept as a research specimen. The desecration added new fuel to his resolve. "Then that's where we're going," he decided. "To stop the purge and recover Alara. One mission at a time," Captain Lynn cautioned. "First, we need to get off this ship alive." They continued through the maintenance corridors, encountering minimal resistance. Lynn's diversion had worked better than expected, drawing security personnel away from their extraction route. As they approached Hangar Bay 7, however, Masson's tactical instincts warned of the increasing risk. "The hangar will be guarded," he assessed. "Standard deployment would be at least 4 personnel at the main entrance, plus automated security systems." "Already handled," Lynn replied confidently. "We have people on the inside. The shuttle is prepped and ready. We just need to make the final approach without triggering alarms." She activated a small communication device, murmuring code phrases that Masson recognized as old Coalition battlefield signals, ones that would have been updated since his death, making them perfect for covert operations. "Confirmed," she reported after receiving a response. "Our window opens in 30 seconds. When we enter the hangar, move directly to Bay C-12. Don't stop. Don't engage, even if challenged." Masson nodded his understanding. Years of military operations had trained him to follow tactical instructions without hesitation. The hangar entrance slid open at their approach, security protocols already bypassed by their inside allies. They moved with purposeful confidence across the vast space, passing maintenance crews and flight personnel who barely glanced at them. Their target waited in Bay C-12, an unmarked personnel shuttle with engines already cycling for departure. They were halfway across the hangar floor when alarms blared throughout the facility. "Security breach deck 17," announced the automated system. "All personnel on alert. Prisoner escape in progress." "Our diversion was discovered," Lynn realized. "Run." They abandoned subtlety, sprinting toward the waiting shuttle, as security personnel began pouring into the hangar from multiple access points. Weapons fire erupted behind them, still set to stun, Masson noted, which meant Vega wanted him recaptured alive. Lynn returned fire, providing covering suppression, as Masson reached the shuttle ramp. The pilot, another familiar face from Masson's recovered memories, was already initiating launch procedures. Commander Lynn Masson called, unwilling to leave her behind. "Go!" she shouted back, still firing to keep security forces at bay. "Complete the mission!" Before Masson could protest, Lynn took a stun blast to the shoulder, staggering, but remaining conscious enough to slap the shuttle's external ramp control. The ramp began retracting as she fell to her knees, security forces converging on her position. The shuttle lurched into motion automation systems, engaging emergency launch protocols. Through the closing hatchway, Masson caught a final glimpse of Lynn being surrounded by security personnel, a sacrifice he had neither expected nor requested, but one he understood all too well. Just as Alara had protected him at the cost of her own freedom, and eventually her life, Lynn was now doing the same. The weight of such sacrifices pressed upon him with suffocating force. The shuttle cleared the hangar force field, accelerating away from the Indomitable as pursuit craft scrambled to respond. The pilot, Lieutenant Kara Devlin Masson, now remembered from his restored memories, executed evasive maneuvers with practiced precision. Jumping to FTL in 30 seconds, she announced clinically. Pursuit craft launching, but we have the advantage of preparation. What about Commander Lin? Masson demanded. Devlin's expression remained professionally neutral. Her mission was to ensure your extraction, Captain. She knew the risks, and accepted them willingly, came a familiar voice from the shuttle's communication system. Just as you once did, Captain Masson. General Tariq. Masson acknowledged relief mingling with lingering concern for Lin's fate. Welcome back to the land of the living, Tariq replied. Though I imagine Admiral Vega is currently regretting the decision to issue your obituary prematurely. Lin said you have a plan to counter the purge weapons. I do, Tariq confirmed, but it requires your direct involvement. Your biometric signatures and command codes were integrated into the core Guardian Protocol systems we believe can be modified to generate a counter-resonance field against the purge deployment. Where are these systems now? The same facility where the purge activation sequences are being prepared, Tariq explained. The Coalition Research Station Omega in high orbit around Europa, officially designated for advanced defense applications, but actually the central development hub for quantum-based weaponry. And Alara's body, Masson asked, recalling Lin's revelation. A pause from Tariq. Lin told you. Yes, according to our intelligence, the cerulean specimens, including your Guardian, are being held in the station's research sector. Vega's scientists have been studying the quantum properties of cerulean physiology to refine the purge targeting parameters. Devlin interrupted with a tactical update. Pursuit craft breaking off. We've cleared their immediate response range. Good, Tariq approved. Proceed to the rendezvous coordinates. We have little time remaining. As the shuttle entered FTL space temporary safety, allowing a moment for reflection, Masson found himself overwhelmed by the converging paths of duty and personal mission. Stopping the purge would save countless cerulean lives, a clear moral imperative. But recovering Alara's body, giving her the dignity of proper transition that her people practiced, felt equally essential to his reconstructed sense of self. Both objectives are aligned, Tariq said, as if reading his thoughts. The station's layout will allow a coordinated approach. While my technical team works to reprogram the Guardian Protocol systems, you can access the research sector. What's our timeline? The purge activation sequence is scheduled for final authorization in 27 hours, Tariq replied grimly. Our window of opportunity is extremely narrow. Masson nodded, military focus returning as he processed the tactical parameters. And our resources? Limited, but adequate. In addition to Commander Lin, we've cultivated allies throughout the coalition structure, people who questioned the official narrative, or who had their own reasons to doubt Admiral Vega's leadership. Some have partial memory restoration, others simply recognized inconsistencies in the historical record. And if we succeed, what then? Tariq's voice grew contemplative. Then we face the harder task, Captain. Rebuilding what was broken. Establishing truth in a system designed to obscure it. Reconciliation between species that were deliberately turned against each other. One impossible mission at a time. Masson quoted from old Coalition tactical doctrine, surprising himself with a trace of grim humor. Indeed, Tariq agreed. Rest while you can, Captain. When we reach Europa, every moment will count. The Europa Safe House occupied an abandoned research outpost on the moon's dark side, officially decommissioned after the war, unofficially maintained by Tariq's network as a staging area for operations against Vega's regime. As Devlin guided their shuttle into the concealed hangar, Masson observed the preparations underway with professional assessment. Tariq had assembled a formidable team former Guardian Protocol participants, whose memories had been partially restored, technical specialists with expertise in quantum systems, and a handful of Coalition military personnel who had broken with Vega's leadership. Their equipment, while not military-grade, appeared well-maintained and suited to their covert mission. The general himself waited as Masson disembarked, older and wearier than in his restored memories, but still carrying the authoritative presence that had once commanded the Coalition's most elite forces. Captain Masson, Tariq greeted him with a firm handshake. It's good to have you with us. Lynn sacrificed herself to get me here, Masson replied gravely. I intend to ensure that wasn't in vain. Tariq nodded solemnly. Commander Lynn knew the risks, as did Alara and all the others who fought to expose the truth. He gestured toward a tactical display at the center of the outpost's main chamber. Let me show you what we're facing. The display projected a detailed schematic of Research Station Omega, a massive orbital facility consisting of multiple interconnected modules arranged around a central hub. Tariq highlighted key sections as he explained their mission parameters. The purge activation systems are located in the command module, he indicated. Heavily secured as you'd expect. The Guardian protocol equipment, what remains of it, is being stored in Research Lab 7, ostensibly for comparative analysis with the purge technology. And Alara, Masson asked. Tariq adjusted the display, highlighting a section marked Xenobiology. Here, along with other cerulean specimens recovered during the war, security is substantial but focused primarily on preventing entry rather than containing the specimens themselves. What's our approach? Two-team operation, Tariq explained. Team Alpha, led by myself, will create a diversion in the station's power regulation systems. This should draw security resources away from both the research lab and the xenobiology section. Team Beta, that's you and our technical specialist Dr. Varna, will access the Guardian protocol equipment and reprogram it to generate the counter-resonance field. And Alara's recovery. The xenobiology section is adjacent to Research Lab 7, Tariq pointed out. Once the counter-resonance field is initiated, you should have time to access that area before the station's security protocols can recover. Should, Masson noted skeptically. Nothing about this mission offers certainties, Captain, Tariq acknowledged. We're operating with limited resources against a powerful adversary who controls the entire coalition security apparatus. But the alternative is to allow genocide to proceed unopposed. Masson nodded his understanding. When do we move? 6 hours, Tariq replied. We have a maintenance shuttle with falsified authorization codes that will give us access to the station's secondary docking bay. The codes are legitimate but time-limited scheduled maintenance inspections that occur when the station's command staff is at minimum presence. And after assuming we succeed, there's a cerulean sanctuary vessel waiting at the edge of the Jupiter system, Tariq explained. They'll extract any team members who make it out and transport Alara's remains for proper transition ceremonies. Masson processed this information with military efficiency, already calculating contingencies and tactical approaches. I need to meet Dr. Varna. If we're going to reprogram the Guardian protocol systems, I'll need to understand exactly what modifications are required. Tariq nodded approval. She's in the technical bay preparing the equipment we'll need to interface with the station systems. As Masson turned to go, Tariq placed a hand on his shoulder. Captain, there's something else you should know. About Alara. Masson tensed, bracing for further revelations. What about her? The quantum bond between Guardian and Protectee. It doesn't completely dissolve upon death, Tariq said carefully. Traces remain, especially in cases of particularly strong connections. Our scientists believe that when you're in proximity to her remains, you may experience echoes, emotional impressions, fragmented memories that weren't yours originally. Why tell me this now? Because you need to be prepared, Tariq replied gravely. Such experiences can be disorienting in high-stress combat situations. I need you focused on the mission, not overwhelmed by quantum resonance effects. Masson absorbed this with outward stoicism that belied his inner turmoil. The possibility of connecting with Alara again, even in such a limited way, stirred emotions he had been suppressing since her death. I'll manage, he assured Tariq with military brevity, then continued toward the technical bay. Dr. Layla Varna proved to be a slight, intensely focused woman, whose expertise with quantum systems was immediately apparent as she efficiently briefed Masson on the technical aspects of their mission. Originally, Part of the scientific team that developed the Guardian Protocol, she had been sidelined when Vega took control, her research repurposed for weaponization rather than protection. The counter-resonance field is theoretically sound. She explained, manipulating complex quantum diagrams on her workstation. The Guardian Protocol equipment generated precisely modulated quantum fields to enable the bond between humans and ceruleans. With modifications, those same fields can be tuned to neutralize the purge weapon's destructive resonance. "How long will the modification take?" Masson questioned. "Assuming we have uninterrupted access to the equipment," Varna calculated briefly. "Approximately 12 minutes to reconfigure the core resonance parameters. The challenge isn't the modification itself, it's transmitting the counterfield to the deployed purge weapons before they activate." "Can it be done remotely?" "Yes, but only through the station's quantum communication array," she replied, "which is located in the command module, the most heavily secured section of the station. So we modify the equipment in Research Lab 7, then need to access the command module to transmit the counterfield." Masson summarized, mentally revising the mission's complexity upward. "Correct. And we'll have limited time once we initiate the modifications. The system will detect unauthorized changes and trigger security protocols." Masson processed this additional challenge with military pragmatism. "Then, we need to ensure Tariq's diversion is substantial enough to draw security away from both locations, long enough for us to complete both phases." Varna nodded agreement. "I've prepared specialized interfaces that will accelerate the modification process, but there's no way to rush quantum calibration beyond certain parameters. Physics has its limitations." "As do we all," Masson acknowledged grimly. The 6 hours before mission launch passed in focused preparation. Masson reviewed the station schematics until he could navigate its corridors from memory-analyzed security protocols for vulnerabilities, and familiarized himself with the equipment Varna had prepared for the Guardian Protocol modifications. Throughout these preparations, his thoughts repeatedly returned to Alara. Not just her remains awaiting recovery in the station's research sector, but the possibility of experiencing those echoes Tariq had mentioned, quantum impressions of their bond that might linger even after her death. As the team assembled for final briefing before boarding the maintenance shuttle, Tariq distributed specialized communication devices designed to function even within the station's security fields, and reviewed contingency plans for various scenarios. "Remember," he emphasized to the assembled team, "our primary objective is to prevent the purge activation. Everything else is secondary. If we fail in that nothing else we accomplish will matter." Masson accepted this strategic prioritization, while silently maintaining his personal commitment to recovering Alara's remains. The mission might demand sacrifice, but he would not abandon her a second time. The approach to Research Station Omega proceeded without incident, their falsified maintenance credentials accepted by the automated docking systems with no indication of suspicion. Dressed in appropriate technical uniforms with corresponding identification, Tariq's team disembarked into the station's secondary maintenance bay with the practiced efficiency of legitimate personnel. Security patrols on standard rotation reported one of Tariq's infiltration specialists through their concealed communication devices. "Command staff at minimal presence as expected." "Proceed as planned," Tariq ordered. "Team Alpha will initiate diversion at exactly 0300 station time. Team Beta should be in position at Research Lab 7 by that point." Masson and Varna separated from the main group, following a maintenance access route that would take them to the research sector, with minimal exposure to security checkpoints. Their credentials, while sufficient for routine movement through the station, would not withstand close scrutiny by security personnel. The Guardian Protocol equipment is kept in a segregated section of Lab 7. Varna explained quietly as they navigated the utilitarian corridors. Officially for historical research purposes, but actually because Vega's scientists could never fully replicate its functionality. They couldn't rebuild what they didn't fully understand. "Yet they managed to develop the purge weapons," Masson noted grimly. "Destruction is always simpler than creation," Varna replied with scientific detachment. Disrupting quantum fields requires less precision than harmonizing them. They reached the research sector, without incident, passing occasional station personnel, who paid them little attention. Maintenance technicians were a common sight in a facility of this size and complexity. Research Lab 7's exterior appeared unremarkable, identified only by a numerical designation and security scanner requiring appropriate clearance. Varna produced a specialized bypass device from her equipment pack. This will create a temporary credential that should grant us access. It won't fool the security logs for long, but we only need a few minutes before the diversion begins. The device interfaced with the security scanner, running through thousands of credential combinations before finding one that triggered acceptance. The laboratory door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a space filled with advanced research equipment and technical workstations. There, Varna identified, pointing toward a sealed containment unit at the far end of the lab. The Guardian Protocol Systems. Masson followed her toward the unit, maintaining vigilant awareness of their surroundings. The laboratory appeared deserted, expected during minimal staffing hours, but security cameras monitored all activity from multiple angles. "How long until Tariq's diversion?" he asked, checking the time. 4 minutes, Varna replied, already preparing her interface equipment. Masson positioned himself where he could monitor both the laboratory entrance and Varna's work while staying outside direct camera coverage as much as possible. From this vantage point, he could also see into an adjacent laboratory through a transparent partition visible within was equipment he recognized from medical facilities, though modified for what appeared to be specialized research purposes. "The xenobiology section is through that connecting door," Varna confirmed, following his gaze. "Where they keep the cerulean specimens." Where they kept Alara. The thought sent an unexpected surge of emotion through Masson, anger, grief, determination intermingling into a potent, motivational force. Varna activated her equipment, interfacing with the Guardian Protocol Systems, while carefully bypassing the containment unit's security measures. "I'll need approximately 2 minutes to establish connection before I can begin the modifications." "Understood." Masson maintained his vigilant posture, counting down the seconds until Tariq's diversion. Precisely at 0300, the station's lighting flickered momentarily, before emergency systems engaged, bathing the laboratory in amber illumination. "Alert power regulation anomaly detected in Central Hub," announced the station's automated system. "Security and engineering personnel report to designated response stations." This is not a drill. Through their concealed communication device, Tariq's voice came through with calm authority. "Diversion initiated. You have approximately 15 minutes before automated systems will compensate for the power fluctuations." Connection established. Varna reported, her fingers moving across her interface with practiced precision. Beginning quantum field recalibration. Masson maintained his watch position, dividing attention between the laboratory entrance and Varna's progress. The station's response to the diversion appeared to be following predicted patterns. Security alerts indicated personnel movement toward the central hub, away from the research sector. "How long until the modifications are complete?" he asked Varna. 10 minutes for full recalibration," she replied, without looking up from her work. "Then we need to access the command module to transmit the counterfield." "Which means moving through the station during an active security alert," Masson noted grimly. "Yes, but with most security personnel responding to the diversion." A new alert interrupted her assessment. "Warning, unauthorized access detected in research sector. Security protocols engaging. All research personnel evacuate immediately." "They've identified our intrusion faster than expected," Masson realized. "Continue the modifications. I'll secure our exit route." Varna nodded, intensifying her focus on the critical recalibration work, while Masson moved toward the laboratory entrance. Through the transparent partition, he could see the adjacent xenobiology section more clearly now, and what appeared to be stasis chambers containing preserved specimens. His attention was drawn to one in particular, a chamber at the center of the research area, surrounded by specialized scanning equipment. Though distance and the partition's transparency limitations obscured details, Masson felt a sudden certainty that Alara was there. Not logical deduction, but something deeper, perhaps the quantum resonance echo Tariq had warned him about. The laboratory door slid open unexpectedly, admitting two security personnel with weapons drawn. Masson reacted with combat-honed reflexes, disabling the first guard with a precision strike before the man could bring his weapon to bear. The second managed to fire a single stun blast that Masson evaded, using a research console as momentary cover before closing distance and neutralizing the threat with a targeted nerve strike. Security breach reported in Research Lab 7 came an alert over the station's communication system. All available personnel respond. "We've lost our window," Masson informed Varna tersely. "How much longer for the modifications?"
7 minutes minimum,
she replied, never pausing in her work. "The quantum harmonization cannot be rushed beyond certain parameters." Masson made a swift tactical assessment. "Continue, I'll buy you time." He retrieved the security personnel's weapons and communication devices, then dragged their unconscious forms behind a storage unit, where they wouldn't be immediately visible to reinforcements. "Captain," Varna called urgently, "if security locks down the station before we can access the command module, the modifications will be useless. We need to transmit the counterfield to neutralize the purge weapons." "One crisis at a time," Dr. Masson replied with grim focus, positioning himself for maximum tactical advantage against incoming security forces. The expected reinforcements arrived 3 minutes later, a 4-person security team moving with professional caution into the laboratory. Masson allowed them to advance halfway before engaging using the confiscated stun weapons with precision that incapacitated 2 guards immediately. The remaining 2 took defensive positions behind research equipment, returning fire that forced Masson to seek cover. "Status, Dr. Varna," he called over the exchange of suppression fire. 4 minutes remaining, she reported, her voice remarkably steady despite the combat erupting around her. "The quantum fields are aligning, but final calibration requires complete sequence execution." One of the security personnel attempted to flank Masson's position, a standard tactical maneuver, but executed with insufficient cover. Masson targeted the exposed movement, his stun blast finding its mark and reducing the active threat to a single opponent. The final security guard, recognizing the deteriorating tactical situation, activated his communication device. Additional support needed in Research Lab 7. Multiple hostiles, heavily armed. Masson eliminated the threat before the call could be completed, but the damage was done. Station security now had specific location and threat assessment information. The next response would be larger, better prepared, and possibly armed with lethal, rather than stun capabilities. "Dr. Varna," he said with urgent authority, "we need to accelerate our timeline. Security will lock down this entire sector within minutes." 2 minutes remaining for essential calibration, she replied. "Without it, the counterfield will be ineffective." Masson made his decision. "Complete the calibration. I'm going to recover Alara now. Then we'll proceed together to the command module." Without waiting for response, he moved toward the connecting door between Research Lab 7 and the xenobiology section. The door required security authorization, which he now possessed thanks to the confiscated credentials from the security personnel. The xenobiology section was eerily silent, its specialized research equipment powered down to emergency levels during the station alert. At the center, just as he had glimpsed through the partition, stood a prominently positioned stasis chamber. Within it, suspended in preservation field, was Alara. The sight stopped Masson momentarily. Her blue-tinged form appeared peaceful, almost as if merely sleeping, rather than deceased. The preservation technology had maintained her physical integrity perfectly. None of the crystalline transformation that Sareth had described as the natural transition process for ceruleans had occurred. As he approached the stasis chamber, Masson experienced what Tariq had warned him about, a sudden flood of impressions that weren't his own memories. fragments of Alara's consciousness preserved in the quantum resonance that had once bound them, her determination to protect him, despite his hunting her. Her sorrow at what had been stolen from both of them. Her acceptance of sacrifice as the price of honoring her commitment. The intensity of these impressions nearly overwhelmed him, but military discipline reasserted itself. The mission remained paramount: stop the purge, recover. Alara exposed the truth. Emotional responses could come later, assuming they survived. The stasis chamber controls responded to the security credentials he had acquired, initiating a controlled shutdown sequence. As the preservation field deactivated, Masson carefully lifted Alara's form from the chamber, surprised by how light she felt, as if her physical substance had already begun the transition process, despite the technology attempting to prevent it. "Captain Masson," Varna's urgent voice called from the laboratory. "Calibration complete. We need to move now." He carried Alara's body back to Research Lab 7, where Varna had packaged her modified interface equipment for transport. "The counterfield parameters are set," she reported efficiently. "But we still need to access the command module's quantum communication array to transmit them to the deployed purge weapons." "Then, that's our next objective," Masson replied, adjusting his hold on Alara's form to maintain both dignity and tactical mobility. "What's the most direct route given current security conditions?" Varna consulted a schematic on her portable device. "Maintenance shaft C-47 would avoid most security checkpoints, but..." She broke off, staring at Alara's body. "You actually recovered her." "She gave her life protecting me," Masson said simply. "I won't leave her here to be treated as a research specimen." Understanding flickered across Varna's features. "The maintenance shaft is this way," she said, gathering her equipment. "We should hurry. Station security will be implementing full lockdown protocols." They moved swiftly through the research sector, encountering minimal resistance, most security personnel apparently still responding to Tariq's diversion or the previous alert in Research Lab 7. The maintenance access point Varna had identified was secured with a simple mechanical lock, rather than electronic authentication, a legacy feature from the station's original construction, predating current security protocols. The shaft itself was narrow, but navigable, designed to allow technical personnel access to the critical systems running throughout the station's infrastructure. Masson led the way, still carrying Alara's body with careful respect, while maintaining tactical awareness of their surroundings. "Any word from Tariq?" he asked, as they progressed through the confined space. Varna checked their communication device. "Nothing since the diversion initiated. He may be maintaining communication silence for tactical reasons. Or his team had been captured, or worse, Masson thought, but didn't voice. Military experience had taught him to prepare for worst-case scenarios while still executing the mission. "How close is the command module from our position?" "2 more junctions," Varna replied, consulting her schematic. "But the final approach will require crossing an open corridor with active security monitoring." "We'll deal with that when we reach it," Masson decided. "For now, focus on reaching the junction without detection." They continued in tense silence, the station's alert systems still broadcasting security notifications throughout the facility. From what Masson could gather from these announcements, station personnel were implementing a systematic sweep of all sectors. It would be only a matter of time before they discovered the maintenance shaft access point. As they approached the final junction before the command module, their communication device activated unexpectedly. "Team Beta report status," came Tariq's voice, tense but controlled. "Diversion effectiveness diminishing. Security protocols adapting faster than anticipated. Modifications to Guardian protocol systems complete," Masson responded quietly. "We're approaching command module for transmission phase. Target package secured." He used the coded reference they had established for Alara's recovery. "Understood. Be advised Admiral Vega has been notified of the security breach. He's ordered activation of the purge weapons ahead of schedule. Timeline is now critical." The revelation sent a surge of urgency through Masson. "Time frame." "Less than 30 minutes until activation sequence completes," Tariq replied grimly. After that, the counterfield will be useless. We'll make it, Masson assured him with more confidence than he felt. Maintain diversion as long as possible. They reached the final junction where the maintenance shaft intersected with a main corridor leading to the command module. As Varna had warned, the corridor featured active security monitoring cameras and motion sensors that would immediately detect unauthorized presence. We need a distraction, Masson assessed carefully, setting Alara's body down within the junction. Something to draw attention away from our crossing point. Varna reached into her equipment pack, extracting a small device. Remote-triggered electromagnetic pulse, she explained. Limited range, but it will temporarily disable monitoring systems within a 20-meter radius. The effect will last approximately 40 seconds before backup systems engage. 40 seconds to cross open ground and access the command module, Masson calculated. It's tight but doable. The command module access requires high-level authorization, Varna cautioned. The credentials we've acquired from security personnel won't be sufficient. Leave that to me, Masson replied, a plan already forming in his tactical assessment. Deploy the EMP on my signal. He retrieved one of the security communication devices he had confiscated earlier, adjusting its frequency to match command module protocols. With practiced precision, he mimicked the authoritative tones of security command. Command module. This is Security Chief Raisin. Prepare to receive 2 technical specialists for emergency diagnostics on quantum communication array. Possible compromise related to current security alert. A brief pause, then a response. Security Chief Raisin, we show you currently deployed in Sector 3. Please verify authentication code. Masson had anticipated this challenge. Authentication Tango Delta 740. COM system routing through Sector 3 relay due to current alert protocols. Another pause, longer this time, as command personnel presumably verified the partial authentication he had provided. It wasn't perfect, but amid an active security alert, procedural shortcuts were common. Authentication accepted. Proceed to command module entrance for security verification. Masson nodded to Varna. Deploy the EMP now. She activated the device, which emitted a soft pulse that was barely perceptible to human senses. The effect on the security systems, however, was immediate. The monitoring indicators on the corridor wall shifted from active green to emergency amber. Move, Masson ordered, gathering Alara's body once more. They emerged from the maintenance shaft into the corridor, moving with swift purpose toward the command module entrance. As promised, the security monitoring systems remained inactive, their emergency backup protocols not yet engaged in the brief window created by the EMP. The command module entrance featured both automated and human security measures, a scanner system, and 2 security personnel stationed at a checkpoint. As Masson and Varna approached the guards, assessed them with professional suspicion. Identification and authorization, one demanded, hand resting near his weapon. Security Chief Raisin sent us, Masson replied, with practiced authority. Emergency diagnostics on the quantum communication array. You should have received notification. The guard checked his console. Verification confirmed, but we still need to scan your credentials. Masson presented the confiscated security credentials, gambling that in the confusion of the ongoing alert, the guards wouldn't notice the mismatch between his physical appearance and the credential data. The gamble paid off partly. Technical specialist clearance confirmed, the guard acknowledged. But we show no authorization for transport of biological materials. He indicated Alara's body with a nod. Specialized quantum calibration sample, Varna interjected smoothly. Required for diagnostic alignment of the communication array. The alert has disrupted standard authorization protocols. The guard hesitated clearly, uncertain about procedure in this unusual circumstance. His uncertainty worked in their favor. Few security personnel wanted to be responsible for delaying emergency repairs during an active alert. Proceed, he decided finally, but remain escorted at all times while inside the command module. Masson kept his expression professionally neutral, concealing his concern about the escort requirement. Their plan required unrestricted access to the quantum communication array to transmit the counterfield parameters. They were led through the command module's primary corridor toward the communications center, a secured area containing the advanced technology that maintained the station's connection to the wider coalition network. Personnel moved with heightened alert throughout the facility, responding to the ongoing security situation. "How do we lose the escort?" Varna murmured, barely audible. "Wait for an opportunity," Masson replied equally quietly. That opportunity came sooner than expected. As they approached the communications center, a priority alert blared through the station's announcement system. "Attention all personnel. Security breach in central power regulation. Possible sabotage detected. All available security personnel report immediately." Their escort hesitated clearly, torn between his assignment and the priority alert. "Duty to current orders 1 temporarily. Continue to the communications center. I'll verify your authorization with the chief technician." The communications center contained multiple workstations, each dedicated to specialized aspects of the station's extensive communication systems. The quantum array, their target, occupied a prominent position at the center of the facility, its distinctive architecture unmistakable to anyone familiar with advanced coalition technology. Several technicians were present, all focused intently on managing communications during the ongoing security alert. Their escort approached the chief technician, engaged in brief conversation, then returned with a frown. "Chief Technician Lowell will verify your authorization directly with Security Chief Raisin," he informed them. "Please wait here." This development threatened their entire mission. Direct verification would immediately expose their deception, bringing the full force of station security down upon them before they could transmit the counterfield parameters. Masson made a swift decision. Setting Alara's body carefully aside, he approached their escort with what appeared to be a technical question, then executed a precisely targeted nerve strike that rendered the man unconscious without alerting the busy technicians across the room. "We have minutes at most," he told Varna urgently. "Get to the quantum array and transmit the counterfield parameters." She nodded, moving swiftly toward the central workstation, while Masson positioned himself to intercept any technicians who might approach. From his tactical position, he could observe the main entrance while still maintaining line of sight to Varna's progress. "Accessing quantum array controls," she reported quietly. "Security protocols substantial but navigable with our modified interface." Masson checked the time. According to Tariq's warning, they had less than 15 minutes remaining before the purge weapons activated 15 minutes to transmit counterfield parameters that might save countless cerulean lives. "Alert status update," announced the station's automated system. "Security breach contained in research sector. Intruders reported in command module. All personnel implement lockdown protocols immediately." "They've tracked us," Masson realized. "How much longer, Dr. Varna?" "Interface connection established," she replied, fingers moving with practiced precision across her equipment. "Uploading counterfield parameters to quantum array now. Estimated transmission time 3 minutes. 3 minutes they might not have. Masson could already hear security personnel assembling outside the communications center entrance. He moved to a more defensible position, prepared to buy Varna whatever time she needed to complete the transmission. The entrance slid open, admitting 4 fully equipped security personnel with weapons drawn. Masson engaged immediately, using the confined space to limit their numerical advantage. His military training combined with years of field experience made him a formidable opponent, even against superior numbers. 2 guards fell to precisely targeted strikes before the others could establish effective positions. The remaining 2 opened fire, still using stun settings rather than lethal force, an advantage Masson exploited by accepting a glancing hit to close distance with the 3rd guard. "Parameter upload at 60%, Varna called from the quantum array. "Need 2 more minutes." Masson disabled the 3rd guard, but took a direct stun blast from the 4th, the impact sending him staggering against a communication console. Only years of combat conditioning kept him conscious and functional, despite the weapon's debilitating effect. He launched himself at the final guard, both of them crashing into a workstation. The technicians, finally alerted to the violence erupting in their facility, began emergency evacuation procedures, adding to the chaos, but giving Varna precious additional seconds at the quantum array. 80%, she reported as Masson finally subdued the last guard. Almost there. New security alerts blared throughout the station. Unauthorized quantum transmission, detected emergency protocols engaged. All communication systems entering lockdown. They're trying to block the transmission, Varna realized, working frantically to maintain the connection. Rerouting through secondary protocols, maintaining signal integrity. Masson took up defensive position at the entrance, knowing reinforcements would arrive momentarily. His body ached from the stun blast's effects, but combat focus overrode physical discomfort. Transmission complete, Varna announced triumphantly. Counterfield parameters successfully uploaded to all connected quantum networks. Will it reach the purge weapons in time? Masson demanded, already hearing the approach of additional security forces. The quantum entanglement ensures near instantaneous propagation, she confirmed. If the weapons are connected to coalition quantum networks as our intelligence indicated, they've already received the counterfield parameters. Relief washed through Masson, tempered immediately by tactical awareness of their current situation. They had completed the primary mission objective, preventing the purge, but still needed to escape the station with both their lives and Alara's remains. We need extraction, he stated, activating their communication device. General Tarek, mission accomplished. Request immediate assistance. No response came, only static interference indicating active signal jamming throughout the station. We're on our own, Masson concluded grimly. Gather what equipment you need, Dr. Varna. We're moving out. Where to? She questioned, collecting her critical interface technology. The entire station is locked down and actively hunting us. Masson retrieved Alara's body, handling her with respect, despite the urgency of their situation. Remember our initial infiltration route. Most security personnel have been drawn to the command module and research sector. The maintenance shaft we used should still offer a viable path back to the docking bay. And if Tariq's team has been captured, then we improvise, Masson replied, with the pragmatism of a veteran soldier. One challenge at a time. They exited the communications center through a secondary access point, avoiding the main entrance where security reinforcements were now audible. The maintenance access they had used earlier was nearby, assuming it hadn't been discovered and secured during the ongoing alert. As they moved through the utilities corridor, approaching the access point, the station's announcement system activated once more. Attention all personnel. This is Admiral Vega speaking. The familiar, authoritative voice echoed through the station. A terrorist action has been attempted against critical coalition defense systems. The perpetrators are still within this facility. All security protocols are now at maximum level. Any personnel encountered outside their assigned stations are to be detained immediately. He knows, Varna whispered. He knows what we've done. But can't admit it publicly, Masson noted. He's calling us terrorists rather than acknowledging the purge weapons or our countermeasures. They reached the maintenance shaft access point, still unsecured, confirming Masson's assessment that security resources were focused elsewhere. They entered quickly, Masson leading the way, with Alara's body, while Varna secured the access point behind them. Progress through the narrow shaft was slower now, both of them feeling the effects of sustained high-stress operation, and in Masson's case, partial stun weapon exposure. Nevertheless, they maintained steady movement toward the docking bay, where their extraction point awaited. Do you think we succeeded? Varna asked quietly, as they navigated a particularly confined section. Will the counterfield actually prevent the purge? We've given the Ceruleans a fighting chance, Masson replied. The counterfield won't neutralize the weapons entirely, but it should create safe zones where their people can survive. The rest will depend on exposing the truth about Vega's actions to the wider coalition. If we get out of here alive, she noted grimly. One impossible mission at a time, Doctor. They emerged from the maintenance shaft into a utility corridor, one level above the secondary docking bay, where their infiltration shuttle waited, assuming it hadn't been secured or destroyed during the security alert. The area appeared deserted, most personnel having responded to various alert stations throughout the facility. Almost there, Masson encouraged the weight of Alara's body beginning to tell on his stun-weakened muscles. Just one more level down and across the loading area. As they approached the access stairwell that would take them to the docking bay level, a voice from behind froze them in place. Captain Masson, or should I say the traitor formerly known as Captain Masson. Masson turned slowly, positioning himself between the voice and Varna. Intelligence Officer Tarek stood at the corridor junction, accompanied by 4 elite security personnel with weapons drawn. Tarek, Masson acknowledged coldly. Still following Vega's orders without question, I see. Following legal orders from the rightful coalition command structure, Tarek corrected. Unlike some who've been corrupted by alien influence. His gaze shifted to Alara's body in Masson's arms. I see you recovered your guardian. Touching, if ultimately futile. We've stopped the purge, Masson stated with quiet certainty. The counterfield has already been transmitted. Vega's genocide has failed. Something flickered across Tarek's composed features, confirmation that their mission had indeed succeeded, at least partially. A temporary setback, he replied, recovering his professional detachment. The weapons will be recalibrated, the counterfield analyzed and overcome. You've bought the Ceruleans time, nothing more. Time enough for the truth to emerge, Masson countered. About the manufactured war, about the Guardian Protocol, about all of it. Tarek signaled his security team to advance. Place the Cerulean specimen on the ground and step away. Dr. Varna, relinquish your equipment. Cooperate and you'll be treated with reasonable consideration despite your actions. Masson made his final assessment. Their position was tactically indefensible, outnumbered, outgunned with no viable escape route. Yet surrender would mean not only their own captivity or execution, but Alara's remains returned to research storage, the counterfield's parameters extracted from Varna's equipment, and the purge renewed with greater determination. Some choices transcended tactical calculation. Dr. Varna, he said quietly, when I move, head for the stairwell. Don't stop, don't look back. Captain, she began to protest. That's an order, he interrupted with calm finality. Someone needs to confirm our success to Tariq, to the Ceruleans. Someone needs to tell Alara's story. Understanding dawned in Varna's eyes, along with reluctant acceptance of the military logic. One survivor, carrying crucial intelligence, outweighed 2 casualties. It was an honor, Captain, she said simply. Tarek, sensing their exchange implied action, tensed visibly. Final warning, surrender now or... Masson moved with explosive speed, charging directly at Tarek and his security team, while still carrying Alara's body. The unexpected frontal assault, tactically irrational, but therefore unpredictable, created momentary confusion that Varna exploited, darting toward the stairwell access, while security personnel focused on the more obvious threat. Weapon fire erupted in the confined space, no longer stun settings but lethal energy that seared the air around Masson as he drove into the security formation. He felt impacts against his body pain, flaring in his shoulder, his side, but combat focus narrowed his awareness to the immediate tactical objective, create sufficient chaos for Varna's escape. He crashed into the first security guard, the momentum, carrying both of them into a second. Tarek scrambled backward, shouting orders that were lost in the confusion of close-quarters combat. The remaining guards attempted to establish firing positions that wouldn't risk hitting their own personnel. Through pain-hazed awareness, Masson registered Varna's successful escape into the stairwell. The primary objective was accomplished. She would reach the extraction point, deliver confirmation of their mission's success, ensure Alara's sacrifice and his own were not in vain. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly. Despite Masson's combat prowess, the numerical advantage and superior weaponry of the security team began to tell. A blast caught him squarely in the chest, driving him back against the corridor wall. Another seared across his leg, compromising his mobility. Throughout it all, he maintained his protective hold on Alara's body, a final act of guardianship to mirror her years of protection. As his strength failed and darkness encroached on his vision, Masson found himself experiencing those quantum resonance echoes Tariq had warned about, impressions from Alara's consciousness, preserved in the bond they had shared. Not words, but feelings, completion, acceptance, peace. "I understand now," he whispered to her as the security team closed in for final neutralization. "Your whole life protecting me, and I was hunting you. But in the end, I found you. In the end, I understood." The last thing Captain Cale Masson saw before consciousness faded completely was a strange luminescence beginning to emanate from Alara's body, the crystalline transformation that Sareth had described finally initiating, despite the preservation technology that had suspended it. As if now at last she could complete her transition, knowing her purpose was fulfilled. In his final conscious thought, Masson hoped that somewhere beyond quantum physics and biological mortality, Alara knew that her guardian had in the end become her protector. 3 months later, a memorial stood on a remote plateau overlooking the vast crystalline plains of New Cerulean, a sanctuary world established beyond Coalition space. The memorial bore no name, only a simple inscription in both human and Cerulean script. "For those who protected across boundaries of species and understanding. May their sacrifice illuminate the path toward reconciliation." Before this memorial stood Dr. Layla Varna, General Aram Tariq, and Elder Sareth of the Cerulean Council. Around them gathered survivors of Tariq's network, successfully extracted after the mission at Research Station Omega, and representatives of Cerulean communities saved by the counterfield that had neutralized Vega's purge weapons. "The counterfield continues to hold," Varna reported, breaking the respectful silence. "Coalition scientists haven't yet determined how to overcome its parameters. Each attempt to recalibrate the purge weapons has failed." "And the political situation?" Tariq inquired. "Fragmenting," Varna replied. "The evidence we transmitted has reached key officials within the coalition government. Questions are being asked about the war, about Vega's leadership, about the alleged Cerulean threat. It's not victory, but it's a beginning." Elder Sareth approached the memorial, placing a crystalline object at its base. The quantum pendant, containing the trace resonance from Alara's guardian bond, recovered from New Damascus after their extraction. "Captain Masson's sacrifice completed what Alara began," the elder observed. "Guardian and protectee, their roles reversed but their purpose aligned. There is symmetry in this that transcends our differences." "Do we know what happened to them?" Varna asked quietly. "After I escaped?" Tariq shook his head. "Our sources within the coalition report only that the terrorists were neutralized. No bodies were recovered, no prisoners acknowledged." "Yet, something happened on that station," Sareth noted. "Something Admiral Vega refuses to explain even to his closest advisors. Our quantum sensors detected a massive resonance surge at the moment of Captain Masson's last stand, a harmonic unlike anything in our records." "What does that mean?" Varna questioned. "Perhaps nothing," the elder acknowledged. "Or perhaps something our science has yet to comprehend. The quantum bond between guardian and protectee was always partially beyond our understanding, a connection that transcended physical limitations in ways we could observe, but never fully explain." Tariq gazed out over the crystalline plains home, now to thousands of Cerulean refugees, saved by the counterfield. "Whatever happened, their sacrifice ensured this," he gestured toward the growing settlement. "A future where reconciliation remains possible." As twilight descended on New Cerulean, the memorial began to glow with soft luminescence, a property of the native minerals used in its construction. To those gathered, it seemed appropriate light emerging from darkness, hope kindled from sacrifice. Among the stars above a single point of light, moved across the constellation, Ceruleans called the Guardian, a navigation beacon, transmitting a simple message to any vessel that detected it. "Remember Alara. Remember Masson. Remember what was lost and what might yet be found again. In the vast emptiness of space, the beacon continued its lonely vigil, a testament to protection that transcended boundaries of species, of memory, of life itself. A final echo of a guardian's dedication and a protectee's understanding resonating across the quantum fields that connected all living beings in ways science was only beginning to comprehend. She had spent her whole life protecting him, even as he hunted her. In the end, he had protected her memory, even as it cost him everything. And somewhere in the quantum resonance that bound them, perhaps both found peace in the symmetry of their shared sacrifice.